What's up, people? Welcome to a brand new edition of Wrestle Update. I'm your host, Dylan Fox, and as always, joined by my good friend and yours, Nello. And today is going to be a special episode. We haven't done these, but very rarely in our past. We did have a couple of special episodes of this ilk that weren't really show-based or news-based. We like to step outside the box, color outside the lines sometimes. I think one of our greatest additions to podcasting and wrestling and everything was our PWI 500 episode that we did, which featured us trying to get Kojima into the 500. And little did we know, Hideo Kojima would later come out to talk about his love of wrestling. And his
Jun Kasai.
Yep, that's right. The Kasai documentary, growing up with Tiger Mask. I don't want to say I had a sixth sense for that. I didn't know that at the time when I said that, but it doesn't surprise me. You know, I've played a lot of his work. It's not surprising to me that he is a wrestling fan. But that was a completely unhinged episode. But we did our draft episode where we, drafted people, tried to complete an Americanized roster with all sorts of things. And now today we are doing the state of the industry, so to speak, the state of the scene, the state of the companies. Today, it's something like I definitely think, well, we'll see how this goes ultimately, but I definitely think this is going to be something we revisit for more the smaller companies in the future, for sure. I would love to talk more about them in this kind of focused setting. But, right now, what we're going to do is I have a list of things. We're going to go down both companies, WWE and AEW. We're going to do almost 2 episodes in one. And if it gets long enough on one, I may split these up into 2 episodes. I'm not going to lie to you on that end. Just to make it easier for everybody. It would kind of make up for the WrestleMania episode, which I ended up having to combine both of our episodes into one. So we'll see how it goes. But the fact of the matter is, we're looking at where things are right now. WWE, AEW. We are going to go into the full spectrum. This is the no bias zone we have now entered in. I have laid out a bunch of different things to talk about that we have both come together for, and I will briefly kick us off with what you are going to hear on this episode. We are going to start off with each company. 4 things that we like. We're going to go through it almost like a debate. We're going to talk about the 4 strengths of the company we are going to talk about. What do we like if so-and-so, if whoever runs WWE, if the final boss himself called us up and said, Nello, you are now in charge of everything. Tell me 3 things that I like or that you like and that we need to continue doing in this company. Or if Tony Khan called you up and said, hey, I need to know. I'm so busy with the Jags right now. I have to go with Fulham and all of that. We have to delegate some things to you. Tell us what we're good at. We've got 4 things we like that we're looking at. We've got 4 things that we don't like. 4 things that need to change. Like, what are the things that stand out that we wish would change and we think could be done better? Maybe we'll have suggestions for that as well. That's something we can look at. Then we start to look at the roster. How we look at these guys that we have seen so many times for WWE and AEW. We are going to separate things and break down divisions. Who are we going to build around? Your 4 pillars as that got drove into the ground by AEW. But I think it's actually, despite the name, despite the annoyance some people had, I think it's a good template to have. 4 main people. Who are we building the men's division around? Who are we building the women's division around? Who are we building the tag team scene around? We will talk about it all. And then, finally, we're going to have some top prospects. Maybe not we're building around right now, but people that won't win a title, a world title in the next 3 years. That is exactly how I laid it out when I sent it to Nello. He knows what I'm talking about right now. But they will eventually succeed the pillars currently, or at least ascend to their level, as we've seen tried time and time again. And then finally, 4 dream free agent signings for each company from outside. Where would we have them fit in each company? So, with that said, how are you feeling about this, Nello? This is our first time we're ever doing something like this, a state of the union, so to speak, although there are no unions in wrestling. How are you feeling about it?
I'm really happy. It's exciting when like we're not just recapping something because I don't have to think as much in those situations, right? I'm
Yeah.
just watching something. But for this, it was putting a lot of thought into the companies. I don't really sit down and think about, especially with AEW, like finding negatives was hard because it's such an easy watch for me. But it was good because I really got to think critically about the product in a way that I typically don't, in terms of a bigger picture way. Um, just how to, I love making lists. List making is
List
like
is always fun.
one of my favorite hobbies. So this hit all the good spots for me. I had a lot of fun putting it together. I actually made a spreadsheet. So I'm ready to rock.
I definitely think we need an entire list episode in the future. I don't know what when we're going to count down, but I, like you, have always approved of lists. I think I may have told this story before, but I'll repeat it if anyone new is listening. Um, so when I was younger, one of my favorite things, and I think you will personally appreciate this, um, every month I would be like on the edge of my seat, and this shows you that we're a little older. To be honest, now that I'm thinking about this, but I was a kid at the time. Okay, I was like 10 years old when this started, if even younger. I loved waiting every month for an issue of Game Informer to come in, a video game magazine that unfortunately went out of business last year. But I was heavy into all that. That was like the peak era of gaming media. I felt like that 2000s lane when G4 was big. Everybody was kind of into it. I watched all the shows on there. I got the video game magazines, but Game Informer was my favorite. It came with a bundle with GameStop when you got the card, their yearly membership for GameStop Pro. They would send you a monthly edition of Game Informer, and in it, every single month there was a segment where they would make just a random list. Usually, it was stupid, like it was about something not even gaming related, but they would specifically say everyone loves lists. That was their only justification for having this page. And it always stuck with me that yes, everyone does love list. I completely feel the same about that, and that inspiration has continued on to this. So we will do a list episode in the future. But this has list aspects of it, but is even bigger in scheme, I would say. Like, like the bigger in scope, I would say. So here's how I want to do this. We didn't really talk about this or break this down. But I think what we'll do is kind of make it, for the sake of time and make it easier for ourselves and the listeners, I would like to kind of go down do every aspect that I laid out to you for one company at a time. We go all the way through the positives, the negatives, the prospects, all that for one of the companies, and then we do the other one all in a row. I don't want us jumping back and forth because I feel like that would be a little confusing, to be honest. Especially with two of us here that we both have our thoughts on. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, cool. So I'll throw it in your hands. Which company do you want to do first, and which one will you go first on? One of us will go first on one, and the other will go first on the other. But which company do you want to go first overall?
Let's just do WWE first.
Okay, then I will lead us off with that one. And would you prefer to lead off with that one?
You kick it off with WWE.
Okay, I wanted to give you AEW since you talked about how hard it was to find negatives with them. I would like to start with this then. Okay, so we're gonna start off with our both go for grand scheme thoughts, and then I'll kind of go down my list and we'll have conversations about what we say. So for me, my grand scheme thoughts on WWE. I think first of all, this was really hard for me to even kind of get my thoughts in line for one company over the other, because I think the difference between these two in terms of doing a segment like this where we're talking about the state of the company, there's so many micro parts of WWE, and I think a lot of that comes from there being 3 shows which are distinct in their own ways. With AEW, Dynamite is the main show, and Collision is almost like this off the cuff show that isn't as important as Dynamite. They don't even try for it to be at this point. As you could see by last night's episode, which got cut off 30 minutes early, unfortunately, um, which is interesting. But with WWE, it's a lot harder to really give grand scheme thoughts because I think there's a ton of things you could say on both ends, not just four. I think like there's so many things you could go with. The product itself, I think, it's a roller coaster. We talked about it. Listen to our review of Backlash. The first half of the show we both really enjoyed, and then the second half was ungodly terrible. And I feel like that's the story of the company in a nutshell. They have a really big issue, and some people would say it's a strength, but I would say it's a negative ultimately. I think that they try to please everyone, and they try to have something for everyone. A lot of people would say they're not a work rate company, but if you look at their wrestlers and a lot of the best matches they have, we did, and again, go back to our WrestleMania weekend show. We talked about almost every show that happened that WrestleMania weekend, and in the end, both of our number one pick was a match from WrestleMania for the match of the weekend. Was the Io Bianca Ripley triple threat? That was both of our number ones. They have work rate that can be as strong as anyone else, but they also have so much utter garbage in there that it makes watching them a little difficult and nearly impossible to watch all three shows, I would say. And especially because I think NXT is wildly different than the other two, and I will talk about that more in one of our segments. Will I say it's a strength, or will I say it needs to change badly? Let's talk about it. But it's really different than Raw at the end of the day. And I think it's hard to really say, overall, this is what I feel about their product, because I think it's so up and down. But in the grand scheme of things, I think a lot of that, like wanting to please everybody, really kind of hurts in a lot of ways. I wish that they would have a much more focused product. I wish things would get together more overall. We talked about the WrestleMania build-up. And I mean, it got proven this year and last year. The final boss could come in and change everything on a dime and then kind of throw everyone under the bus in an interview when it sucks at the end. When he doesn't want to show up for afterwards. So I really think the product itself could really use a lot of focusing. I wish that it wasn't so so pre-produced all the time. That's something I'm going to get into later. I think if there was more room for spontaneous stuff, it would make the product a lot better. As my evidence of that is the Charlotte and Tiffany feud, which was a dud feud that got turned into something awesome because they started shooting on each other, pretty much. And I think that if there was more room for that, I think the product would be a lot better. So it's too, glossy, robotic, but more so than anything else, it's too all over the place. They don't want to focus on one type of fan. They want to serve everybody, and it makes the product worse, in my opinion. So I think there's definitely good things, and I'm going to get into that. But overall, I have no problem watching Raw with my grandparents. I'm really inspired by them to watch it and do something together. But I usually don't truly hate it. The other two shows I think have a lot of room for improvement, and even Raw has a lot of room for improvement. But I definitely think, in general, I wish that they had a more focused direction. What are your overall grand scheme thoughts on the company itself?
So are we doing lumping our pros and cons into this, or
no? This was a grand scheme speech, pretty much like your ultimate thoughts. It doesn't have to be as long as I did it. Just kind of your overall feelings. Are you when I say WWE to you, what do you feel about that? What do you think of in terms of the product? Because obviously there's a lot of horrible situations we could go into, but just in terms of the product, what do you feel about WWE? What's your gut feeling on them? Not necessarily the specifics, but just your gut feeling.
they're the Disney of pro wrestling, where there is no one bigger. There probably will never be anyone bigger, but it's good that there's alternatives because a company like Disney and WWE very much like to act as though their method is the only method to make things to where It's like they self-brand in such ways, right? The greatest match ever. A Disney movie is a Disney movie, right? Same thing with Marvel, stuff like that. Like these are experiences in a way more so than like, I don't know, like a wrestling product.
Mhm.
Um, so it's good and bad in the sense of, as well as WWE does, I hope that means that the other companies do just as well and also expand and wrestling as a whole succeeds. But it's one of those things where I do believe that if you are just a WWE fan, that you're not so much a fan of pro wrestling as you are just a fan of WWE and the way that they do things. Because any other company is going to be so wildly different for the most part. Um, like there are always elements, especially just any American sort of soap opera style, right? Um, but like, yeah, I don't know. It's just that very, like you said, they try to appeal to everyone. And when you say everyone, I don't think that it necessarily encompasses like even a hardcore fan as much as so just saying the general population is everyone. Like the everyday person
Yeah.
who walks off the street, that's the everyone that I picture when you describe. It's not literally everyone, but the concept of the every person. They don't Triple H has gone on record and said that he doesn't want critics and all of these things and people on the internet always complaining. So like that tells me they don't want everyone because they don't want that critical voice. They don't want that demographic. So they just want their audience that they're able to do what they want to and have them still pop for it. But yeah, I mean, overall, WWE is something I enjoy covering with you. It is, there's still sometimes like a Money in the Bank match or, uh, Royal Rumble. Like there's still some very exciting annual events to it. Um, but largely it's just not for me. Like I don't watch weekly. I do listen to the recaps, but I just, yeah, I invest in other pro wrestling.
And you're somebody I would say is a pretty on the high end of deep wrestling fan to me. I mean, you have watched wrestling from all over the world for years and years now. Like you're far from any kind of casual. You really love this, like deeply, deeply, and that's something that's why we're such great friends. In a lot of ways, is that we're similar in that end, and other reasons, of course. But I've always really appreciated that about you, and your ability to appreciate different aspects of wrestling as well. I think your point about them being Disney is very true. I think that's like so accurate, and it kind of goes into what we just talked about. By saying they appeal to everyone, it's appeal to everyone in their version. Similar to as Disney, there was a time Disney was Disney. They had everything, but then what did they do? Oh, suddenly now Pixar is in the fold. Now Marvel's in the fold. Now Star Wars is in the fold. They're trying to grab everyone. If you go to Disney Plus, you could watch The Simpsons on there. Like they've got almost everything under their umbrella. I think that's a really great comparison piece. They ESPN is a part of their package now. Like even sports fans, they want to be on Disney Channel.
Yeah,
Even
and you can
WWE.
see WWE
Yeah.
with that type of expansion with AAA, WWE ID. Like they need to have their hands in everything because like unless they are monopolizing entertainment, sports entertainment, then they just see it as an opportunity for someone else to come in. So they need to dominate.
And I think that's led to, I mean, both tons of good and bad, even in the Disney sense. There's no way, like, if you're any kind of honest person, you could argue that Marvel has not been greatly, greatly, greatly profiting from being a part of Disney. Like, again, that era where I was getting those Game Informers, the idea of the Avengers having $1 trillion movie was never even possible. Like, it wasn't even close. When Spider-Man came out, everyone was like, "Whoa, this is the first ever good superhero movie," because all the ones before it weren't that good. Remember Incredible Hulk from like '03? Did you ever watch that movie?
Yeah, Ang Lee.
Yeah, and it was awful. Like I was so bummed when they had Fantastic Four.
Oh, I got some love for that movie, mostly because I fuck with all Ang Lee movies. Like I think Gemini Man is a masterpiece, so
Okay,
I'm an Ang Lee apologist.
okay, and I respect Ang Lee too, but still,
Can
what
you
about
believe that he
Fantastic?
followed up Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon with the Hulk? It's pretty wild.
That is fucking awesome. If I do say so myself. But it wasn't what it could have been, in my opinion. Fantastic Four, another one that I saw in the theaters. Jessica Alba, like when she was at her peak. Like, but the movie wasn't that good, and I was a big fan of all of that stuff. I'm somebody who grew up on all of the superheroes, like pretty much. Like I watched the X-Men cartoon, Spider-Man, read the comics. Lightwing is my favorite hero, and right there, that's a deep cut in and of itself. Right now, literally in my room, I'm looking at a special edition Nightwing figurine, still in the box. The gallery collection that I have. One of my ex-girlfriends got me that as a gift, and I love it to this day. But I'm a huge fan of that stuff. But the fact is, the modern day MCU is not the same as the superhero stories I loved from the comics or the shows before. It's gotten to a point where it's its own thing, much like the WWE universe, so to speak. So I feel like if you're a purist, you're not a fan of that, but you also have to admit that the level of popularity MCU and Marvel has now would never have been attainable if they weren't purchased by Disney. So with that said, I thought that was a great overall point on your part. We're going to break down our specifics now. I laid it out to start. Let's go ahead and get into it here. First off, okay, so we're going to do another on-air production test. So do you think that we should just go all for one pretty much? So I go down the list of things I like, don't like, 4 pillars, all that stuff. Or do we go back and forth on each one? Like I'll do my 4, then you do your 4.
Yeah, you're 4, my 4.
Okay,
cool. We just move through each category.
Okay, good. All right, so we're looking now. We're going to start off positive. We're going to start off strong. And we're going to end strong because we got cool stuff at the end. The 4 biggest strengths of the company, the 4 things that we like the most. It could be anything. There are no rules. It could be a part of the product. It could be the company itself. It could be anything. Like, production. Like, it doesn't matter. Like what? And like I said later, yeah.
Something I try to do too was not so much like some things that, like things that I think objectively are pros. So not maybe subjectively so much, but like these are, I think, are the biggest pros of the company currently.
And we will talk about their excellent pyrotechnics in the future. But no, I totally get that. And that's what I try to do as well. So I'll do my 4. You can respond, and then it'll be your turn, so to speak. So the 4 things that I would pinpoint as strengths of the company in WWE. It could be anything. It could be booking. It could be whatever. Like vibes, like anything. Like there were no limits on this. It was what we think are the biggest strengths. So for me, and again, there was no particular order to these in mine. I don't know if you did yours that way. But I think they're all in the top tier. Like if you put a gun to my head, I might pick one over the other. But they're all in that top tier of things. And I think that's why this 4 number is very good for this. Although it is an unlucky number in Chinese numerology, I will say. The first thing that I would point to, again, if I'm in a meeting with The Rock and he's telling me what are our biggest strengths here, the 4 things we can build around, I think right away, the thing that I would praise and consider a strength of this company is the roster. Like the talent level of this roster is so strong. Again, and like now you could look at, say, oh, so and so doesn't have as many great matches as he would have elsewhere. That's a totally different argument, and I'm probably agreeing with you in almost every case. But if you just look at the level of talent on this roster, it is insane. I think that they have so much talent from all the corners of the world. When we covered that AAA expansion or whatever, because there's been differing reports on who actually owns AAA. There was a company in Mexico that seems to be a co-investor, so to speak, with WWE. But nonetheless, when we looked at that and we talked about the panic of WWE potentially raiding Mexico, my first response to that was, look at those people that were at that desk they had. That's like an all-star team of exceptional talent, and pretty much top to bottom on each show. Like whether it's a top star, we've seen guys have great matches. We talked about the EOs, the Biancas, the Ripleys, or down to the undercard guys. Again, like all those guys at that table, pretty much. Like the LWO talent level is so freaking high. Like Dragon Lee was one of the top names before he signed to WWE. Gunther, one of the top names in WWE. Before he came to WWE, excuse me. This company is so strong roster-wise that I think they have established people that are focused on outside of injuries. There are significant core groups of both men and women constantly getting time every week, in addition to special attraction types like your Roman Reigns or whatever. Even though I don't love his work, there's no doubt that he is an attraction. I think the roster currently, in terms of skill plus star power, is literally at the greatest it's ever been in the company's history, just in terms of pure wrestling and star power. One of the other things I think that they have constantly proven that they are focused on having longevity in their storylines. Very rarely does it feel like anything is hot-shotted for the sake of it. Outside of the final boss, when he comes in, there's almost always a clear end game in mind to me, and some of the destinations along the way are never my favorite. But I think in general they have a great eye for longevity. Like they don't feel like a hotshot booking compared to when Vince was there. Surely, like it's much improved on that end. But even in comparison to AEW, I think this is one of the things they have over them. The third thing I would consider an objective strength: the promotional factor. Let's face it. Between them and TKO's backing, as well as whatever deal they have with ESPN and all of these companies, they're getting talked about all over the place for a nauseating degree, to be honest. Again, compared to the MCU stuff we talked about the Disney Channel, it's the same thing. Where they're more mainstream now than I think they've ever been in an accepting way. I won't say they were more popular overall than times past, but because I definitely don't believe that. But I think it's much more acceptable now to be a wrestling fan than it has been in a long time. And we just talked about there was a huge controversy on Twitter recently where somebody was talking mad trash like on anime fans and video game fans and saying how they're ruining wrestling pretty much. And wrestling needs to be upheld to a higher standard. When in the past, wrestling would have been placed below that stuff in terms of mainstream, acceptability again. That said, I'm not saying it's not annoying sometimes how much they get talked about and all of that stuff, but there's no question it's helped not just their stars feel like bigger stars, but the company's more mainstream and acceptable to non-fans. And I also think that it helps too that this company now is not run by somebody who is totally embarrassed by wrestling. Even if they're far too entrenched in terms of the sports entertainment legacy to be what I really wish the top wrestling company would be, it's not that, and I'm not saying it is. But I think they're more acceptable. They've got some of the biggest modern names in music in Hollywood. And I think that they've done it. We've seen them break kayfabe willingly, like openly. They have a whole show coming up in a few months about the writing process of this show. And taking wrestling being it is what it is, not trying to convince people it's something it's not, which has never happened in the history of wrestling before. My last point that I would say is a strength would be the spectacle factor. I think this is honestly one of their biggest advantages over AEW directly. When it's time for Cody to finish the story, they ain't half-assing it. When they truly, truly want to make something feel big, it can elevate stuff that isn't that interesting on its own to me to end up feeling like major moments in all sorts of the stories they tell. Just like at CM Punk's entirety of 2024, pretty much. We know how we both feel about Pepsi Phil. the chick magnet is not going to be on our Christmas card list anytime soon. He came back to the company. Look when he came back. He was constantly on the losing end of promo battles against Seth, Drew, Cody. And I'm not saying they weren't good segments, just that they were kind of showing him up. Then he was injured for half a year. But by the time we got to Bad Blood and Survivor Series, they had already successfully made his parts feel like the biggest parts of both shows, even over Bloodline stuff. And so what I'm saying by all this is, when they really want something to feel huge, they are hitting on that over 90% of the time. And I think that's another reason why this year's main event with Cena and Cody really fell flat, especially compared to the first night's main event, which, again, that was a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I didn't love that match as a match, but the crowd was into all three guys as superstars with such a lame stipulation as who's Heyman going to be cornering going forward. They still made it feel like the biggest deal ever, and I think they know how to do that better than any company to me. So with that said, I think that's about how I would lay it down into the things that I would say. The roster, the storytelling longevity, the promotional backing, and the spectacle that they excel at. Those would be the four things I would say are my strengths. Do you have any thoughts on that before we get to your four?
No, totally agree. I can see the value in all of those. I'm excited because my list is, I think, all different.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm excited. So for me, number one, international destinations. Ever since Backlash, Puerto Rico, it's just been one of their greatest strengths. I look forward to PLEs that are international so much more than a St. Louis or something like that. But that's not to discredit domestic crowds, because my number two are the live crowds. WWE's live crowds are insane. I mean, you're peaking like 10K every single show, it feels like. And they are loud. They have energy. They feel like re-energized in a way that they definitely were not 5 years ago. Especially, and I say that, I mean, I only watch the pay-per-views really. So again, it's maybe there is bias there, but I think that the live crowds are exceptional, from their singing to, and this can be attributed to AEW as well. So maybe it's just pro wrestling crowds as a whole, but they are very inspired, and I think they really help carry the show. My number three, TKO. I feel like ever since they've entered this TKO era, they have objectively become bigger than ever before in terms of finance and modern day, like you were talking about, exposure and whatnot, the acceptability of being a wrestling fan. I think that the TKO era has pretty much ushered all of this stuff in through a lot of ways that I haven't exactly been a fan of personally. But again, like, from the outside, you cannot deny that they've really leveled up with this new ownership. From the cutthroat economic horniness of Mark Shapiro to the shareholder appeasing of Ari Emanuel. They are like the WWE super team now, and they're not slowing down in any perceivable way. Number four for me, and I feel like this is where we're going to disagree a lot, so I was excited for this one. John Cena. Regardless of how you feel about his current run, the live crowds are so unbelievably fucking excited to see this guy no matter what. Like the follow up to that St. Louis main event was just them cheering him like a Cannes Film Festival major winner for like 10 minutes, just giving him his flowers as he didn't say a single thing really and just walked away all solemnly. Like, the fact that they have his name from now until the end of the year, they have guaranteed themselves a marquee star and storyline throughout the entire year that they don't really have. Like, they probably have the whole thing set up already, right? Like, it really writes itself. Cena heel turn. Who are the best people to face him in his retirement run, and who's going to take the belt off of him? That's really all you have to do. However you feel about it, besides the point, because fuck does it feel successful right now. And I'm not really stoked on it. I don't think he's coming good into this heel role. But again, like people are just so jazzed to see him that like he feels untouched. He's made WWE feel untouchable in a way in terms of like they are guaranteed their main events this year. They don't have to try to build up any other stories or whatever. Like they could just ride this Cena wave and that's all they need. So those are my 4 pros.
I really agree with all of that. I hate the Cena run. It's no secret, that I think that all of this has sucked. I think that the promos have been terrible and the matches are what they are. But that doesn't change that what you said is totally true. Like if Cena's contract, let's say he retired and then, his contract was expired or whatever. And literally the next day, even after this completely awful heel run, in my opinion, if he called Tony Khan and said, "Hey, I'm open for business. Like I retired from WWE, but you could have me," I would sign him at almost any price. Pretty much. I think that he's incredibly valuable, and it kind of what you said also kind of plays into the longevity of stories that I said. Like that is a great example right there. They pretty much got whatever happened with the turn or whatever. They now have concocted motivation. They concocted a storyline that will last all year, pretty much. And I like that. I think that's a great thing, and that's why it was one of my things too. Same thing with TKO. Again, that kind of plays into 2 of my points: the spectacle and the promotional tactics. I think TKO has unquestionably been a huge asset for them. So yeah, no real argument there. I really agree with what you said on there, but that goes to show there that the company, they are built by those things overall. And I think it's interesting that we went there. So with that said, we went through our 4 strengths there. Again, some differences for sure. Let's see if our weaknesses are the same. So for me, if the final boss, The Rock, called me, Dwayne, and said, "Hey, 4 things have got to change. Tell me what you want to happen and I will make it happen." The first thing I'm doing is calling Jim Johnson and buying him whatever price he needs to come back. Their entrances suck so much, and it's sickening how proud Trips is of putting out these videos of him producing these entrances down to the last detail. Like with Nakamura's, like that thing coming out. The songs suck, and even the ones that are good lead to a Pavlovian reaction. I get what you're saying about the crowds, but to me, it's also like robotic almost. Like they chant along because they feel like they're supposed to with the Seth song or anything like that. The songs suck, the music sucks enough already. Get Def Rebel, send them to UFC when they were hired recently as well. I don't even know who Def Rebel is, but they need to go. And we need to get Jim back. Need to get somebody back. I think it's such a huge part of really any wrestling. Like Japanese entrances are such a huge part of the experience, but especially in American wrestling, the entrances mean so much, and they get F marks. Look at the Royal Rumble. Half the people, nobody knew who was coming out because the music was so bad. I would change that immediately. I think it's one of the biggest flaws, in my opinion. The tag team booking is putrid and deserves scorn through no fault of the wrestlers. I am not blaming the wrestlers. Again, I said the roster was one of their biggest strengths. You look at their tag team scene, their names should lead to legendary matches every week, and a scene we haven't seen since the SmackDown 6, pretty much, at WWE. But instead, the biggest flaw that I would point to with the tag team division, go back to that amazing New Day angle. And I remember at the very time that we talked about it, I didn't think that they should keep being a team, not because the angle wasn't great and heartfelt and all that stuff, and emotional, but because they were not going to be used to their potential as much as they would be feuding with each other. And unfortunately, what happened at WrestleMania? They were in a nothing match with Viking, the War Raiders. And that whole scene, there's just not a lot there, even though there's a ton of talented teams. And we're going to get into that more when we talk about who we build the divisions around. But the scene sucks. They have to fix that and put more importance on it. Number 3, I think the presentation of their pay-per-views or their PLEs, they need significant work. I don't even mind that there's like 5 matches on the show. I know a lot of people complain about that. I don't mind. If they're all 5 important and there's not filler on it, they cut that crap out. Again, to call back to our Japanese background, how many New Japan shows have had a great top half of the card and 4 or 5 meaningless undercard matches that everyone just wants to skip? I don't need that. I'm not sad that they're not on the show. That's fine. But it's so robotic in format. Let's start the show. We start with a video package. Then we go to a match. That ends 20 minutes of commercials. 10 minutes of, entrances. Then another match. Then 20 minutes of commercials. Then 10 minutes of entrances. Then another match. Gone on and on and on. I really wish that they had more promos and angles to break up their big shows, just to break up the monotony, especially since not everyone has the tier where it even shows the video packages. So you're dealing with these same stupid-ass commercials over and over and over. Like, you're not selling me on Slim Jim at this point. I've seen the commercial 20,000 times. The 4th one, and this is where I laid the heavy, I saved the heavy hit for here. NXT. NXT as a whole. I'm not going to say there ain't nothing good about it, but the whole show needs to grow up. Listen, you said Disney earlier. This is a Disney Channel show, just hide it as wrestling with WWE branding. The storylines are nonsensical. The characters have water-thin depth. There's nothing to them. Shallow as the shower, pretty much. As cute as what we aim for, like what's said famously. Booker T's commentary. And on top of it, not only that, it features wrestlers that are in their late 30s and 40s for the 3rd string show. Put these young guys on there. And maybe some veterans you don't have anything to do with, but you do see potential with, like the old days when they sit in Claudio and Tyson Kidd and all that. Send them in there, and if they're not one of those 2 categories, get their ass out of here. The whole show needs a tone change, a tone shift, roster changes, commentary changes. Yes, the roster has a lot of good talents to it, but the show itself, week to week, is embarrassingly terrible. Chef Michaels is not cooking anything but a big old pile of shit. And I think they need to stop it. Stop this Gooner revolution that they are under right now with the commentary and their storylines and all of that. This show could be something great, but it really fails as a developmental show. It fails as a 3rd brand. Who is this show for? Other than giving the women more spotlight than men, which makes it stand out. Yes, I love that. I'm not against that. It's the way they book the show and the tone of the show, which makes it feel like a show. It's for like tweens, pretty much. Like 12 to 14 is their key demographic. Time to grow up. So yeah, those are my 4. There, we have the music, the interesting music, the tag team scene, the PLE presentation, and NXT as a whole. What do you think?
It's funny. I almost listed NXT as a positive, but I couldn't really figure out the words for it. But in some ways it did, but you've convinced me otherwise. We have some agreements here on this one. So I'm excited. And then for the ones that we agree on, I'm going to try to comment them from another angle rather than just repeat what you've already said. So for me, the cons, number 1, WWE's general PR, especially is seen through this WrestleMania week that we just experienced. I think that Triple H is so bad at front-facing questions and dealing with serious issues and the treatment of fans and criticism. Like it's always feels like a unpleasant headline whenever you see it. Um, this Roman Reigns profile that came out, there's seemingly embrace and okayness with like this more so far right identity and like MAGA stuff now that they're doing that they never ever did before, right? Like WWE always stayed in its own bubble, and now it feels like they are mask off in a lot of ways. And then even John Cena's, multiple times talking about how he loves Vince McMahon, just nightmare shit for me. Things that you read and you're like, and even like the releases and all that stuff, like after the making 40 million at WrestleMania in 2 days or some shit, right? Like anything that this company does makes it hard to watch in a way, or unpleasant. Like there's always those inklings of just like, I don't feel great about watching this, right? Number two, PLE format as well. As you said, you made a lot of great points. On this last show we had 11 wrestlers and Pat McAfee featured. I counted. There are 106 main roster wrestlers between Raw and SmackDown. So when you're booking these 5 match shows, unless you're just like going NXT stand and deliver and doing just crazy multi-man matches, you are like denying so much talent these PLE spots. And like, you're pretty much always going to have a Cena spot on one of these cards. So that's 4 matches now that you get access to, right? There's more titles with significance than there are spots on the pay-per-views. And that's pretty fucked up because it means like, yeah, like they're going to do a lot more on TV, but they haven't established it yet where that's meaningful to do. Like maybe eventually it'll be like, oh, a Raw main event really means something. But right now, weekly television matches, it's just like, oh, you weren't big enough or good enough to get on the main PLE card, right? Especially like look at the criticism around the SmackDown tag titles, TLC triple threat, not getting on Mania as you were talking about over the New Day Viking Raiders match because it was a co-promotional thing or whatever with the video game. And like that's insane. And because it was on TV, it probably got less eyes and it's just not held at the same level. Like people are a lot more likely to go back and watch pay-per-views than they are random episodes of weekly television, right? Um, like when people are firing up Peacock or Netflix or whatever, even the old WWE network, you're always going to the pay-per-views. You're not like, oh, SmackDown episode 1213. Um, so yeah, just really not a fan of their PLE formats. They're way too long with not enough content, and the amount of ads and commercials, especially if you don't pay for Peacock premium is fucking obnoxious. Um, Number three, celebrities from Travis Scott to Pat McAfee to Kill Tony. Like WWE has this new, and maybe it's not completely new, but like obsession with constant celebrity presence. Not like a Hugh Jackman showing up on an episode of Raw or like the Muppets hosting one night or something, right? Like this is every single week we need to feature celebrities to show that we are in the same cultural mainstream sphere as these A-list people are. Like we are the A-list entertainment, just like Travis Scott is, just like a Pat McAfee is. Like we are top tier, top shelf. And a lot of the time, why is Travis Scott involved in the WrestleMania main event finish? Why is Pat McAfee getting a PLE spot against a Gunther? These are things that I think really sabotage the product and take away from pro wrestling moments and make them more entertainment moments, which I personally am not a fan of. And then finally, number 4, the WWE style. WWE, you commented on their roster is a big pro, and I agree with it. But the reason I didn't list it is because of the way that roster wrestles most of the time, and it is within a box that WWE has created. I mean, I think you can already look at the WWE sort of saturation of a Ray Phoenix where they're already stripping him a little of what makes him special. Um, taking people's finishers from the indies and banning them from a package pile driver to something else. And like, again, like just really watering down a lot of people's unique styles to fit into an acceptable mold that they deem good. And I think that is so fucking boring. And that is very much the same thing going back to Disney and Marvel, how they hire, like Disney hires the director of Moonlight, Barry Jenkins, to direct The Lion King 2. Like, this guy is not going to be able to cook in the same way he is on an independent production where he has more artistic and creative freedom. And then what you get is like this weird blip in an auteur's career where it's like, yeah, that movie sucked and it was cost $300 million. And the movie that cost them $3 million actually won an Oscar. Like, what the fuck is up with that? It's just stifling voices and, stripping people of their uniquity until they fall in line with their presentation. And that is so stupid, because why sign these people if you don't want them to sing with their authentic voice? So yeah, those are my cons with the company.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. Like, I definitely agree for sure. I think that the first point you said about just how like a lot of their PR is really in a lot of ways the number one negative for you, me, and a lot of people. I think, unfortunately, the strength of TKO and all of that almost like overshadows it to the point where we've yet to see any evidence of it actually hurting them in a grander scheme way, unfortunately. And I think it should. I wish it did. But I don't think we've seen that to where it's really been a true negative to something they would care about, to be honest, anyways. Same thing with like the stuff with Triple H. I think we all agree he sucks at this at all, and I don't think anybody would argue that. But I don't think he even cares that much, and it's a shame that he doesn't, because that's something. If you're leading a company, especially in 2025, where we all have had heightened senses of this, to where I think more people care truly now than ever, I think you really should make it a point to improve upon the way you handle these kind of tough questions and things like that. And a lot of the stuff they do is just so stupid. The stuff with how they use the roster is also true. Like, I definitely think that is a good point as well. I definitely think it's improved from where it used to be, where things have just become a lot more homogenized in wrestling in general, I think. And in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. Because I think the wrestling quality now is way, way higher than it used to be in WWE. But I also think that it's hurt everywhere else. And like, it's good for them, but bad for the wrestling ecosystem as a whole. Because the old way the indies used to be can never really come back with the way things are right now currently. So I think it's like there's pros and cons to it. But I think overall, though, it's more bad that they watered down the talent, like you said. Overall, I think that they should just like. I think the worst one, and again, I don't think it's like it really affects them too much, but it's something I think sucks and is really stupid. Why do they have to change guys' names and even own the names and stuff like that? Like, why did he have to be Ricky Saints instead of, like, couldn't he have just been Ricky Starks? Like, what? Why not? Why?
So,
like,
Post just did a really interesting thing on this with JC Mateo, right? Where they said
another example.
So Pollock was like, from now on, the way I'm going to approach this is I'm going to do an inverse of it just to see, right? So let's say, because everyone's like Jeff Cobb changing to JC Mateo, but then like imagine his whole career in New Japan, all this stuff, he's always been JC Mateo. And then he comes to WWE and they change his name to Jeff Cobb. You'd probably think that's a worse name at that point than JC Mateo. And I actually thought that was a really funny and good way to approach it. Because then I'm like, they changed Ricky Saints to Ricky Starks. And I'm like, that doesn't sound better to me. But like, I still completely get what you're saying with why change the name. But like, sometimes I do see like, maybe this is a better name.
Yeah, that's. I mean, Jeff Cobb is not exactly like this fantastical name. It's just like Walter and Gunther. To me, that's like a net sideways step. Like that didn't like change anything. Like to me. But it's more so the principle of it. Like why? Like why do we have to change it? Otherwise, unless it's a totally different gimmick change. Like Axiom being Axiom instead of A-Kid makes perfect sense to me. um, you know, so it's like I guess you could say it's positives and negatives, but it's more so the publicity and the PLE stuff. I'll have you know, how dare you disrespect those who go by watch random shows? The May SmackDown from 2003. I watch that all the time. I don't know what you're talking about. At the end. Okay, let's take a look here. May 20th, 03, SmackDown here we're going with. Would you tune in to watch this show? Nello, let's throw it in. Opening match, Eddie Guerrero and Tajiri versus World's Greatest Tag Team for the tag team titles, which sounds like a pretty great match, to be honest. That was for the tag team titles. This is still that SmackDown 6. Like, we're on the tail end of all of that. They kind of switched out some people to, like, Team Angle at the time. But Guerrero and Tajiri, very fun tag team run. John Cena beats Spanky, Brian Kendrick in a match there. This was Rapper Cena days here. We got Benoit versus Matt Hardy with Crash and Shannon Moore there. You've got Rey Mysterio versus Crash and Shannon Moore with Matt Hardy there. So this is during the era of like Matt Hardy being a cruiserweight. Brock Lesnar beat Johnny Stamboli. And the lie detector test versus Piper's Job. 1.53 rating on Cage Match. I love that I picked this randomly. Sean O'Hare beats Mr. America by countout. How do you like the sound of that show? No.
Oh, I'm 100. I'm already pulling it up. If I go silent on this recording, it's because I'm just enthralled in that.
I mean, listen, nobody can disrespect Team Angle. I will not hear it. The world's greatest tag team world. But no, your point was totally true. Let's put the story short. I just wanted to say something silly. So with that said, we have a lot that we've gone through back and forth. I think all of these, if they changed and worked on those things, I think that would make the company a lot better. I definitely think the PR stuff, to me, to fix, because I think there's so much wrong with that, they would have to like clear out basically the entirety of the backstage scene. And I wish that would happen, but I just, it's one of those things that unless there's a groundswell where it really affects them, it's going to be hard to change. Same with anyone, like same with any company, pretty much there. But that said, those are all changes we definitely wish we could make. But now, let's talk about that roster, which we like but don't love how they use them sometimes. Same thing here. We're going to build our divisions. I laid it out at the start. Men, women, and tag teams. And then 4 top prospects coming in there at the end of the day. So for me, I think that when I look at their roster, and I did some research, and I really put some thought into this, and I know you did too. But when I looked at it, there was a couple of people that I thought, man, like they should definitely like make sure to build the company around these people pretty much. And the 4 for me would be, first of all, I think if we're talking about our ace character, it would have to be Drew McIntyre to me. I think he is the best all-around talent in the company in terms of both work rate and also, work rate and also like mic skills, presence, how he carries himself online. That would be my main guy. I would put Gunther, I think, should be there. The problem is they use him like garbage and like ruined his aura. But if you put him in my hands, like you let me pick the 4 pillars, I think that he would be somebody I definitely want at the end of the day. The other one, I would have Jacob Fatu as one of my main guys. Amazing presence, amazing charisma, like great worker, can be the top guy. We saw what he did in MLW. And I think he's just a guy that I would want really being at the top. And my fourth pick would be Sami Zayn. Another one that I think is a great all around talent. Somebody that I would want week to week on my shows. Guys that I would want to cut promos and wrestle, because that's the thing. When I talk about four pillars I'm building the shows around, it's not just star power. Like somebody like a Roman Reigns would unquestionably a top 4 star, but the problem is he never wrestles. Like he's better off as a special attraction type of role, in my opinion. And I think that that's not fit to be somebody I build the company around, so to speak. He's a special attraction more than anything else, in my opinion. And I'm not saying it's like neither positive or negative on that end. It just is what it is, For the 4 women, I think there's a lot of good talents here as well. There's a lot of good you can do with this roster. But I would say for me, I think Bianca is the best overall talent in terms of mic skills and work combined. And I would kind of have her be the face of one of my shows. Io would be she's like the work rate queen, the one that has all the best matches and does so many great things. I would have Stephanie Vaquera, another one, great wrestler. Along with Io, they have amazing charisma. I think that they just know how to get over with the crowd. When Vaquera walked out on Raw to face Io, Raw after WrestleMania, it was incredible. Incredible reaction. Fourth is somebody I think is super underrated. They really misuse her. But again, I'm taking over in this run. I would build the show. Have this person be one of the top 4 women. And I would go with Mia Yim. I think she's gotten into amazing shape. She's like, her look is great. She's a great promo, very unique style on the mic, great charisma, and a great worker. I've seen her have amazing matches on both NXT and going even back to TNA days. She's always had that talent with her, and they don't use her for reasons that I just don't understand. At the end of the day, and I think it's a situation where they don't know what they have. And if it were me, I would unquestionably use her as one of the top stars that I build the show around. When it comes to the tag team scene, now, this is where things get a little interesting, I would say. Because, again, I think they have a lot of great teams. It's just they don't use them, at the end of the day. And I think you have a ton of upside with a lot of people. I think first and foremost, I think the Machine Guns have such a legacy to them, and they haven't been able to really show what they can do in any sort of match. They've used them. I mean, they're good workhorse type people on SmackDown, but I think that they're guys that have not been used to their true capabilities, both on the mic. I've seen them in TNA have great promos, super charismatic guys, legends in the business. You have a lot of great guys. I would have them be the kings of the tag scene and use them to ultimately put over whoever my next in line would be, which would be Fraxium. I think Axiom and Frazier. There was a great chance that both of them on their own could get lost in the shuffle. Although I personally am a bigger fan than Axiom than Frazier. I've said that multiple times before. I think they just belong together as a team. I think they're like great workers, and I think that they do a lot of great stuff together, especially Axiom. But Frazier, I think, obviously has more to him in terms of his connection with Freakin', pretty much. I think that they are a great team, though, and I would have them be definitely one of my pillars. The third tier would be the Creed brothers. I just love their style so much. They do crazy power spots. They're two guys that if you just watch any one of their matches, you could get anything out of them. You could get a crazy power spot. You could get Julius doing some kind of shooting star press. The Brutus Ball, their moves are crazy. They do stuff I haven't seen before. I love them as a team. The fourth team, I would go with the Garzas, Angel Garza and Roberto Carrillo. They're doing some sort of split off with Santos right now. Like Legado del Fantasma is probably coming to an end. And that's fine. I hope that they don't break them up, though. I know they're going to be at that AAA show next month. Doing that, they'll probably be at the Worlds Collide show as well. But I think they're an amazing team together. I think Carrillo is like one of the most underrated workers. And Garza, I think, has a ton of charisma. I really debated on them and the LWO team of Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde. I think I like them a little better as workers. I think Garza is kind of not a weak link because he's like really good too, but he's the lesser of the workers. But I think he makes up for it with his charisma. That's why he was kind of like the biggest star of everybody. Wild wasn't a Mexican star, but still, the other three, he was the biggest star by far because of his charisma. And I think in a Latin American market, you could really go somewhere with those guys. So, I would have the Garzas, Creed Brothers, family faction as well. We have to love that. Fraxium and MCMG would be my three there. So before we get into the prospects and all that, just to break up the monotony a little bit, what do you think about my picks? And I'll let you do your three here too before we get to the prospect ones.
We have some similar ones. I think I have some ones that will make your head spin.
I love it.
But no, I like that a lot. Like, I think that you have a solid promotion. Your reasoning is very sound. So yeah, I liked it. So for me, male pillars, number one as well, Drew McIntyre. I think this guy can do anything. When I think of like main event wrestler, like he's got the look, the promo chops, the personality, the character down, the in-ring performance. Like, he is the full package. Next, Cody Rhodes. I mean, he's your top baby face. He can pretty much do no wrong. When he's good, he's great. Number three, Gunther. He's my favorite still, even though he is diminishing returns and aura loss, and I attribute a lot of that to his storylines and in-ring opponents. I think Gunther can elevate anyone, but he shouldn't always have to be in that position. Like, it's not exactly fair to him to be the carry job guy for people that you think are cool but stuck and you admit are not great in the ring. And number four, someone I think that you could really build around that you really haven't yet, but when you look at a lot of the storylines from the past few years, I think that this guy, especially in the bloodline, is the one that made it interesting, and it's Sami Zayn. You still haven't given him that world title run. He beat Gunther for the IC title. He was the best part of the bloodline. I think that he's shown time and time again how versatile he is, and he deserves a run with it.
Wait, now let me stop you real quick there, because we had three of the four the same. Our only difference was with you, Cody, and me, Jacob, there. So I think that that's a great... first of all, Cody's a great pick for sure. He's a great star. I wanted to kind of defend leaving Cody off, because I think that was probably something a lot of people are like, why'd you leave Cody off, Dylan? I did want to explain that a little bit. First of all, a totally reasonable pick to be a top guy. And I love him in that role. And I think he's a workhorse. He's not like Roman, where he's gone all the time either. He's a guy you could put on TV every week. My only argument against him is, like, if it were a year ago, Cody would have been number one for me. The problem is that he's already gotten the title and had a year-long reign with it. And to me, when I'm building a show, I think he would be better off away from the top part for a while. I'm not saying, and we're not saying too, like the four pillars, these are the only people who could ever be the top star. They're just who we're building the show around, like in our mind. So I would personally not have him as a pillar right now or the near future, but he probably would win his way back up there. And I just want to give my boy Jacob some love, because that guy is freaking awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So your pick was probably right, like was the more objectively correct choice. But that is our one difference. And the other three, we all three agreed. We both Sami Zayn love on Wrestle Update. I love to see it.
So, from me, the women's pillars. Number one, Becky Lynch, probably like my Cody Rhodes pick. I still think that she is the person who is able to, just by being in a program with her, you were elevated to another level. She is a star maker. I don't think any other woman from Charlotte to Bailey, in terms of the vets, are on that same level as her. Like maybe Charlotte is closest. I do think that, she put Tiffany over well, but they haven't really done anything with Tiffany, it feels like, since. Um, have they? I've been totally tuned out on that. I guess it's only been like a month and a half, but
Yeah, and that's a shame because that was such a great moment for Tiffany too. I still remember that was still like I think my favorite part of WrestleMania was like her with the busted up tooth and all of that. But right now they've had a feud with Nia, like pretty much since then. It's not that good. I think it's the stuff they've been doing. But hey, technically, she was in the main segment of SmackDown last week. That's pretty cool.
oh, okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I have no clue what she's doing. So,
Yeah, but the nice stuff. I mean, I'm over all of that, so I agree with you.
okay. So yeah, Becky, and then I've got Io Sky. She is the future. I think that she is your women's Gunther in the sense of she will elevate. She can bring people to that next level in ring. She's put on a lot of great matches. She has a lot of crazy moments already, and it's exciting to see her in the position she's in now. Rhea Ripley is my number three. Again, I feel, and I'll just say number four is Bianca Belair. I think that women's triple threat was booked for a reason, and it's because those are the three women that you could book the next 5 years around. Like, that's in my head. I looked at this as like, who are the people that you could make the champions for the next 5 years and essentially exchange the title and have it stay fresh, have it stay quality. So yeah, I think those three women have insane chemistry, and there's no reason why you couldn't just pair them up in any pairing along with Becky Lynch as well, who I think would only complement it even more in terms of just giving it more profile. My tag team pillars, number one, Fraxium. They're awesome. They're the future. Just give them the belts. Like, they just beat everyone. I know that Street Profits got the belts recently, but like, give Fraxium the belts and let them run with it. Number two, Motor City Machine Guns. I love Chris Sabin, love Alex Shelley. Like you said, they maybe haven't been given the platform yet, but as long as they keep pushing this SmackDown Tag 6 agenda, I hope that they get more shine. Number three, Street Profits. Love these guys as well. Lots of fun in ring. Deceptively good in ring. Like, they're not someone I think about in terms of work rate, but then whenever I see them go, I'm like, Montez has some of the craziest, like, verticals and cardio, and Dawkins is just a beast. Like, his suplexes, his power spots, his hot tags, like, I'm super into them. And then finally, this is pretty much like my Becky Lynch pick, I guess, but New Day. I feel like if New Day was on SmackDown, then that tag division would have the sort of main event spot it's deserving of. Um, New Day, no matter how insignificant they may be, they are significant still. They still have a lot to offer in ring, I believe, and I would like to see them actually mix it up with a division versus being the only team pretty much on a show that's like worth a damn. And we just did those three, right? Not the futures yet.
Yeah, we haven't done the futures first, but we will talk about that right now. No, I definitely like your picks. Again, I think Ripley is another one, and I'm going to say something controversial now because I think that's the one everyone's thinking, why'd you leave her off? Ripley is great. Like, make no mistake about that. Again, great look, great wrestler. One of the better promos, I would say. I don't love a lot of the content that she has. Like, it's so like catchphrase driven, but it's not her fault. Like, that's a part of that. She's one, in my opinion, and again, this may be controversial to some people. She strikes me as the special attraction more than the champion. Because if we're talking about the pillars and who we want to be the champion for years to come, every one of her title reigns in the past has fallen short for me. It's not because of her. It's because I don't think that they know what to do like with her as a champion in a lot of ways, and I think that she's kind of a hard character because she's like monster babyface is one of the absolute hardest roles to play in wrestling, and I feel like they try to walk the line with her a little bit, where because she's going to be over as a babyface, like that's unchangeable at this point, and I think that's why they're running into a flaw with Becky. I think I had that same thing with her. I would consider more of a special attraction than a pillar because they're so damn determined to make Becky Lynch a heel for some reason. Which, I mean, it's worked good. Like, what she did with Lyra was very honorable and a great work. With Ripley, her biggest storyline was really, fighting the guys or going after Dominic. In the women's division, I think she's yet to really be able to capture that essence. Although, the counterpoint to that, and why I think she's still a good pick, we're seeing elements that's turning around, actually. With the triple threat at Mania, they were able to establish her still as a babyface and hugely popular, but not overshadowing the others so strongly. I think they've been able to find a good balance with that. But for her, that's kind of my fear and why I would put her more as a special attraction I build. Like when she shows up, something awesome is going to happen or shit's about to get wrecked. More so than the champion that I put all of the time to. But I just think it's because writing for her character is very hard. Booking for her character is very hard. That's my opinion, but she's a great pick for sure. I'm not arguing otherwise. The prospects and the future picks. So right away, I'm going to throw this question out to you. How did you approach this? Right, for the prospects, especially for WWE in particular. Did you pick all NXT names for what you had in mind?
No.
Yeah, me either. Pretty much. Would you consider, for the women, I'm going to throw two names at you, and I have two other names in my back pocket that I'm going to throw out, depending on your answer, but I'm going to let you just decide. Would you consider Julia and Roxanne prospects and futures people because they've already had so much time on Raw already? Where do you weigh on that? Would they count as prospects?
So Roxanne was somewhat because you said wouldn't win a world title within 3 years.
3 years. That was exactly how I laid it out. 3 years, they will not win the title.
So I have some controversial picks in that sense. But I guess Roxanne was one that I could see winning the world title in 3 years. So
Julia, I don't think it's impossible either, especially on SmackDown, since that got announced that she's on SmackDown now. Yeah,
but here's the thing: is WWE is dog shit at calling women up.
Yes, that is accurate.
With the exceptions of Lyra and Tiffany, I feel like there's been really no good call-ups in a few years.
Yeah, they've done better with those two for sure than the ones they did for a long time. But it's just a question. Yeah, it's just a question. Like we'll see what you say, and I'll throw out all 6 of my names, and we'll determine if they count or not. Because I have a total curveball for the men's prospects I'm going to throw out to you. So for me, the people I'm eyeing on, like if Dylan got to change NXT to how he wanted, and it would be a true development for the guys I want to see are ready for the future and could be main eventers, and I'm trying to build around them. I've got 4 names for you. The first is the NXT champion, Obafemi. I think that he's just awesome. Like, he's got huge amounts of charisma. His work is awesome. He's a beast. I love him. Like, he's amazing, pretty much. I think that he has a ton of great upside and future in this business. And ultimately, wrestling is always coming down to big guys who wreck shit, and he ranks high on that schedule. The opposite, almost like a babyface generational rival in a lot of ways, even though he's younger, would be Javon Evans. To me, I think he's a guy that has so much upside to him. He's got such a unique style, even as a high flyer. He's got charisma, and he really resonates with the younger audience, like teenagers and stuff like that. And to be honest, again, I said it before, I said it last week. I know Tony might have been offended by this, but the fact that he had the balls to go on Twitter and call him a crackhead made me laugh a lot. And with somebody with that much, like somebody who's like he doesn't know any better, I could rock with that, and that's somebody I want on my team. I love Javon Evans. He would be a top player. To me, Tavion Heights, another great prospect. I really weighed back and forth between him and Dempsey. And everybody knows I love me some Chuck Dempsey. I think Heights has a lot, maybe not a lot more, but more physical charisma. And I think his style is more unique. I love Dempsey's style, don't get me wrong. The grizzled, wrestler who's a technical master. I love all that stuff. Like, that's my style of wrestling. I think Heights has some of that, but he also has the big suplex. He also has, like, true charisma. He's got a great smile. I love the way he moves around the ring. I think he's really underutilized in the modern NXT. He's somebody that they should go for, and I think could be a top star, and I would build around if it were up to me. My fourth pick, I'm going a little off the board. I'm coloring outside the lines a bit, Nello, because you mentioned him earlier. I'm about to do something really controversial. I'm breaking up the Street Profits, and Ford is one of my top guys of the future. I think I'm gonna need to rebuild him for a little bit because I think they've been on this tag run for so long. And I love Dawkins too, by the way. I think he's a great prospect in and of himself, even as a singles guy. And they are a great team. And I don't want to take anything away from that, but they have like simultaneously been left behind, but also are one of the most accomplished teams in the division at the same time. They've done it all. Them being the tag champions for a ninth time or whatever, it doesn't move me at all. But I think you have a great story. They teased this a little bit with Ford in the Elimination Chamber that time. They touched on that a little bit. And I thought he stood out. The crowd loves this guy. I think he's got an electric charisma that not a lot of other people in this whole business have that he has. Like, really good on the mic. He's very loose. I think he's got a little bit of Drew in him on the mic to where he's like laid back and but like very funny. But I think he could do some great things with it. I think he's a very likable personality naturally. You've got the connection to Bianca. You could play with in various ways, and it worked a lot better when they did it than Becky and Seth, I will say. So I would have Ford as one of my prospects. I'm building him for the future. Future world champion Montez Ford is in my WWE future if I'm running it. So the 4/6 that I bring up, I mentioned two of them earlier, Julia and Roxanne. But we're going to take them out because they would definitely be up there for me if they are options. They would be as prospects. But like I said, my only thing with them is I would probably have them win the title before like the 3-year mark going in. But still, they obviously count. Going off of that, I would have Lola Vice. I think that she's another one. Amazing swag, great charisma, great look. And I think has a lot of potential as a worker. I don't think she's there yet. I think NXT, she's the kind of person that should be in NXT growing. But she's somebody I see a ton of upside with. I love the exchange when her and Roxanne were feuding. And Lola totally like kind of owned her on Twitter where she was like, I want to do a promo all in Spanish. Because somehow or another they were going on about who's a real Latina or not. And she talked like mad shit on Roxanne not being able to speak Spanish. And then Roxanne, I do have to admit, kind of folded in that exchange. So I love her Twitter game. She's awesome. Lola Vice, she'd definitely be one of the people in the future I'm looking at as a big star. I think Jada, we've talked about her before. I think she's another one. We talked about her in the match we saw at Stand and Deliver. They put her in the ring with a bunch of veterans, Roxy, Stephanie, Julia, and Stephanie skipped a line. I've already got her winning the title for sure in the next 3 years. But still, all of these people were very, very popular, famous, and great wrestlers. And Jada did not look out of place. Great promo, one of the better promos I think of all the women, and a unique style as well. Got to give her up that. Jordan's another one where it's like is she really a prospect? She's been at it for a million years. It feels like. I mean, God, when did she start wrestling? She was like 13, 14, 15. I remember her in IWA Mid-South, brother. Like I said, and she was not nearly as big as she is now back then. But she's jacked, great look, great wrestler. If she counts, put her in. If not, like I said, I'll leave her out only because I don't know if she counts or not, but she would be if so. It feels like cheating to pick her in a lot of ways to me, but that's just how I felt. It's still accurate, but I don't know. Zarya, I think they don't get the most out of her. I know me and you had differing opinions on her and Sol Ruka's odd couple tag team. I was not as big of a fan of that as yours, clearly. But I think that she's got a ton of potential. Again, fantastic look, super strong wrestler. She stands out great. I would love to see her in a bigger deal. I can't believe that they don't have her in a main spot on NXT. It makes no sense to me, to be honest. Another one, deep cut here. I'm about to throw at you. Somebody very new to the business. I actually watched some of her on Evolve recently. Ken got me into started watching Evolve since he's come back from the hospital. Kendall Gray, she's had a little bit on NXT, and on Evolve, I think she's basically one of the only standouts on the roster, outside of my boy Timothy Thatcher, of course, the Evolve original. But yeah, Kendall Gray, I think she's got a ton of upside. The crowd connects with her naturally, and I look for that a lot. I think she's got a great style with the suplexes, another technical style wrestler, which I clearly favor a lot. But I think she's somebody to keep your eyes peeled out for. So, with that said, what are your thoughts, Nello? And who do you got as your prospects? Because I know this could get a little dicey. So I kind of laid out people who may count and may not count, but I will shout them out anyway. I cheated totally with this.
No, I definitely had to do the same a bit as well, but I totally see your vision and lots of solid picks. We have a couple of same ones. I have a couple in my future picks that you put in your actual like pillars. So that'll be interesting. So my men's future pillars are Ricky Saints, Jacob Fatu, Javon Evans, and Obafemi. I think all of those guys in such different ways have a lot of upside. But like between Fatu and Femi, like I think you could have like the future could be very big as well, and just like big boy beef. But Saints, I think, is still one of like the best overall wrestlers that you have. I think that he'll get the NXT title this year, and we'll see how he runs with like his first, big main event title. So yeah, those are my men's. My women's are Stephanie Vaquer. So, you're one of your pillars picks, and these are people where it's like, you never know. There's so many people in WWE. You never know who's going to get the title. So I'm like, maybe these people get fucked. Maybe Stephanie's kept in NXT because she's such a star. Who knows, But my picks are Stephanie Vaquer, Julia, Lyra Valkyria, and Jada Parker.
See, like I said, you could build a company around those four, and I'd be happy. Lyra was a really close call to me. I just picked Michin over her. She was like on my level of the pillars for sure. I loved her promo versus Becky. I think she stepped up huge and a great worker. But yeah, like your prospects list is loaded right now. Like all four of those are great. We both are big fans of Jada Parker in the ring, as we said. But all of those are great. They all deserve it. Again, it depends on what's allowed. If I could switch around people, maybe I'll swap. Who do you think? Okay, let me ask you this then. To fix my version, since we're allowing all of this, who do you think will win a world title, main roster women's title first? Stephanie or Lyra? Ooh, it says you're having to think about this one.
Lyra.
Okay. I think it's close. I think it's a close call.
I think
Stephanie got a huge pop.
She's already there.
Yeah. She's already a champion. She's the secondary champion.
She's already a champion, and I feel like after she does this mid-card storyline and helps elevate the Intercontinental title, World Championship scene is next. So
yeah, okay. Then I'll keep. We can swap Stephanie out and put her as the prospect, and then Lyra can be one of my pillars. They're on that end. But yeah, so overall, like that was a great pick. I think, I think we both set the rosters up for big things in the future. And now we're gonna have a little bit of fun before we move on to AEW. This is where things really get crazy. We've got 4 dream free agent signings. There's absolutely no limits to this. It could be men, women, all women. I mixed, but whatever you wanted to do, they could be from anywhere in the world, any company, except for AEW. You cannot sign people from AEW. It's like same thing from AEW, WWE. There, I thought that went without saying, to be honest. But regardless, make something up if you have not yet. If you had somebody there, but at least for me, I really didn't have that problem anyway. That would be not as fun. So, with that said, the 4 people that I had in mind in terms of future signings, and I think when it comes to this project, like the way we did it, you have to think about it as, who would you want to be, like, where would you put these people? I think that's a big problem with these in a lot of ways. Like, I personally think that it's not just signing dream free agents, but it's where would you fit them and how do they fit into your company? Pretty much. And that's something that I think that we have to think about when you look at this. So the people that I would sign for WWE might not necessarily be the same as I would sign for AEW, or maybe they would be, but I just think they would fit better in WWE. So with that said, I think the first person I would sign is Saya Kamatani from Stardom.
Oh, you motherfucker. She's signed to a Stardom contract. That's not a free agent. I see what you've done here.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I totally cheated.
I'll allow it. Wow.
Yeah, both of my women's picks were for Stardom, to be fair. But I mean, to be honest, if they wanted somebody, they could get them. To be honest, that's how I looked at it. I probably should have said more about that. I'd like to make it more. I just thought, I said it was one of those things. Like, it was in my mind, it was clear, but I don't think I signified it very well. So I probably cheated a little bit. Well, I didn't cheat. I just didn't explain it very well. So I do apologize for that.
No, it's okay.
But yeah, Kamatani, I think her charisma is unbelievable. She would be a superstar in WWE. Like, under her product, the way that Stephanie is, I don't think her work is as good as like an Io or a Julia or anything like that. But I think that she would fulfill a great role in terms of that. I think that she is a fantastic talent, but the charisma is really what I love. The look is amazing. She has the idol background. It would be a huge blow to Stardom, but I think she would be like the first pick I would want to find for the company overall. The second would be Starlight Kid. I think again the charisma is there, but I think the masked look is what's really going to make her stand out. Somebody that can be a true like luchadora style. You could pair her up with her mentor Io again in the future. Super young too, both of these talents, where you can really keep them for a while and be huge picks, for them. I think that they would be really enhance the women's division. For me, for the men's side, I went with 2 men, 2 women in both AEW and WWE cases. For me, I went with one called Manders. I think that he's just all over the place in the indies. I think he's got he's a really great physical, gritty worker, which I think would add an element that he would stand out pretty strongly with. I mean, we've seen like with ID, like they've got so many people that that are on the edge of this. Like, would they count as free agents or not if they're an ID talent? Because like somebody like a Marcus Mathers, you could have easily put in there, but he's technically an ID guy on there. So it's like how you look at it, I suppose. But Manders isn't that. He's on his own. But I think of everybody in the Indies, he would be the guy I would go to, be my top pick, and say, hey, this guy could do something special. Put Manders in there, and I think he'd be somebody that could really grow and develop.
Germany's favorite son.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the 16 karat winner that we have here. The other one is Mascara Dorada. I'm not advertising a full reign of CMLL, but I think he is the one.
God. Here you're pillaging, you're breaking Stardom contracts.
Oh
The
yeah.
only contract you respect is the
No,
WWE ID. Now you're
yeah.
pillaging CMLL. Oh my God.
Trust me, if they wanted to make a big offer to any of these people, they would get them. Like is how I would think about it in real life. Uh, who knows what Stardom would do? They're all over the place with their like how they manage things right now. CML is another one where they can be lured away, but Dorada, he is the man. Like I said, he's a great high flyer, somebody that would do something special. I don't actually love bringing him in just because I feel like you've already got Dragon Lee and a bunch of guys that you could do a similar thing with, but you don't really get the most out of any of them. But I'm really rolling the dice on the talent, and again, trying to build around these people and make them something better. At the end of it, make the company better with them and use them better than you've used the others before. So that would be my 4 futures talents. But free agents, I guess. Although, like you said, they're not really free agents. I said anyone allowed, but whatever. Who are your 4?
Just great picks there. Manders is the one that stood out most to me. I feel like there's a lot of people in NXT who are kind of on their own, but have like sort of Southern type personalities.
Yeah.
And Manders could totally lead that faction. And I think give a sort of identity and home to a lot of these stray NXT talents. But so my 4 picks, number 1, Matt Cardona. I think this guy could be an NXT champion.
Okay.
This guy could be an NXT champion for a year. I think he would be so fun. Like I really enjoy Matt Cardona. I think his work rate is competent enough for an NXT like main event scene. He's just really good at character work, and I think that that's what NXT people need a lot of. And I think that any program that they would go into him, he would hopefully make it creative enough to add an additional ripple into each person. Number 2, I drafted Becca. I think this pop star would do great in NXT. Real fun ring. I still think about and go back to watch her match with Maki Ito sometimes, one that we watched from Homecoming. Her presentation is great, and I feel like it's surprising that there is no like pop star character. Maybe there is, but on NXT that I know of.
Yeah, I don't think there is,
and I think
actually.
that she would just really benefit from the WWE presentation. Next, number 3, I picked Atticus Kogar. So I've talked about
man,
this a
that
lot.
would be insane if he was in WWE.
So I've talked about this a lot in terms of I think NXT could really benefit from having a hardcore title and hardcore division. People like Malcolm Monroe III, Hoodfoot, fucking Akira, Tommy Vendetta. Like I genuinely believe that these are people you could put on TV in a hardcore division and have like an ECW style resurgence. They are awesome. They are fucking great in ring. They're willing to take big risks. And I think that if you let them push not quite light tubes, but barbed wire, chairs, all this shit, right? Like let them cook, but that will never ever happen. But on that same note, and this may be a reach to some people, but I'm going to break it down like this. Atticus Kogar is a good wrestler with an unconventional style and somewhat sloppy looking things that are kind of part of what makes him work, right? He is really good at promos. He is an alternative guy with tattoos, piercings, different sort of look, and he is amazing at constructing these like grudge and blood feuds. I really feel like Atticus could almost be your next generation CM Punk if booked well in WWE. I think that he has a lot of the same qualities from the in-ring, from like the sort of attractive sloppiness to like can still put together a great psychological thing, lots of spectacle. I mean, him feuding with Fuego reminded me of Punk and Mysterio or Punk and Hardy, like getting personal, digging deep, forcing these characters out of their comfort zones in a way that a Bray Wyatt and a fucking Aleister Black could not, because they would just be, it's always the same shit with them. Like, I feel like Atticus is someone that backs up these dark side promos. So yeah, Atticus Kogar, big one for me. And number 4, Calvin Tankman. You can see here I have no respect for an MLW contract, so maybe.
And they got the lawsuits will come again over this.
Court's going to court, baby. But Calvin Tankman, tell me that is not an amazing NXT main event with Obafemi. Like that is a match that would
Yeah, that match would
bang.
rule.
I think Calvin's ready for that next level, and I think he would really benefit from a more sort of rigid schooling for character and promo and all of that stuff.
I love all of those picks. I think Kogar would be like such a mind trip. If he signed to WWE, that would be unthinkable, but it would be like really great. Like what you said is so true. Like I agree with literally all that you said about him being a punk type of character. um, and just like, but at the same time having that like darker parts to it that I think he could really play off well and be more straightforward and understandable for a lot of the audience. I think Tegman's great. Like one of the best, for sure on the Indies. I've always admired him a lot, and I think you could get a lot out of him, too, in that role. I think he'd be a great pick to side in and improve things. What, would you have these guys be like start off all in NXT, or would you have someone come to the main roster?
All NXT. That's definitely how I looked at it. Like I think that
Yeah.
Cardona is the vet that would make NXT really work. Like he could play this sort of tweeny show where it's like the CW, and I think that he could just fuck it up in such a fun way. Um, like doing like he would have his own Jimmy Lloyd character. Um, like bring back as Delander with him as well. Although she would probably never want to, and I totally respect that. But yeah, I think everyone like these are the people, my free agents. What's funny is that for AEW, I approach it as like, I mean, these are main event people that I would bring in. And these sort of positions, high profile, main roster. I'm not drafting people for Ring of Honor, right? So there was that difference in approach there.
Would you see Cardona with his wife in WWE?
After the NXT run, that could be really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. Like, but I feel like that's kind of his upside ultimately. NXT, he could definitely be a great like dickhead, like the same character he plays pretty much on the Indies. That could definitely work. On the main roster, I definitely think he's headed toward Comedy City with Chelsea, which I think could be fun.
Yeah,
no. Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. And I'm not saying it's any kind of negative at all. I just think it's a great spot for him. Obviously, they're gonna have to. We're gonna see the return of Long Island IZ. I think back into NXT. Or would you have him like burn his old action figures? I mean, like the Zack Ryder stuff. Is that all going down? Like as he comes in as Cardona?
Yeah, I think you bring him in as Cardona.
Okay, I think that works as well. So yeah, a lot of fun exercise here. I mean, I think we've both totally rearranged the company around. We called out some. I don't think anybody would really disagree with any of our critiques, really, of them, and we had some interesting picks for the positives, and I think that's fun. So, with that said, what about AEW? Like I said, let's kick things off now. Let's go ahead and hop right into it. You can go first on this one. You take the lead with AEW here.
All right. So my 4 pros for AEW. Number 1, match quality. This is what I watch this company for, is that I can rely on the fact that every week I'll probably see at least one 4-star match and then a lot of other good ones. The matches are meaningful. The wins and losses are meaningful. It feels like in a big way right now. And now they're allowing people to take meaningful losses like a Fletcher against a Hangman, etc., which goes into my next pro, which is tournaments. I love tournaments. Recently, Will Ospreay talked about how tournaments are the blood of pro wrestling, and I completely agree. From the Continental Classic to the Owen, to sometimes they do those eliminator tournaments as well. Like tournament season is typically my favorite season of any company, from Champion Carnival to G1 to N1 to King of Gate. All of that stuff I really, really enjoy. I like the storytelling that happens in tournaments, how everyone has their own narrative, and then, whenever you pair up 2 people, those 2 narratives clash and create a new one together. So I love that pairing up quality. Speaking of pairing up, number 3, their partnerships. I think that now more than ever, AEW's partnerships are incredibly important, not just to AEW, but to pro wrestling as a whole, especially with WWE's insane expansion plans. So I think that this holy trinity of CMLL, AEW, and New Japan is a very important international partnership that I hope does not falter or disintegrate, just because I think that they are very much the three kind of representatives of pro wrestling, not sports entertainment, but pro wrestling for their respective countries. And finally, the roster. So I actually went with the roster here where you went with it for WWE, but I can't think of a better roster at any point in history than AEW's current one. It is so unbelievably stacked. It was so hard to pick my talent for this one, whereas with WWE, I got through it pretty quickly. But yeah, those are my pros. What about you?
I think all of those are accurate. I 100% think you cannot argue this roster is anything but awesome, like a top to bottom. I think they've done a fantastic job of working with different companies in a way that is great for them as well. So for me, I think one of the things I would say AEW definitely has over AEW, I think the roster of WWE is great as well, as I said, but I think the thing that really puts AEW over the top is the working style itself. I think they have significantly more variety to it. Simply put, there's a lot of things AEW does in matches that you won't see WWE do, right? For better or worse. I mean, some people may not love all of the stuff that they do, but I find a key positive. If I were to run a company, I would do my damnedest. So now we're not in WWE, we're talking about AEW. One of my big goals, if it were me, would be to do everything I can to ensure my show was as different as possible to WWE's. I would say they aren't close to different enough, personally, but there are enough in-ring moments that are striking and makes this a big positive for me. My big example of this would be the Hollywood ending, a match that Mariah May will absolutely never be able to have that kind of match in WWE. Nor has their women's division ever came close. It feels like Japanese and Mexican influences are embraced a lot better, to be honest, and just more readily in AEW than WWE. Although I don't actually think their foreign talent are booked that much better, actually, in the grand scheme of things. But at least the creativities of the wrestlers on an in-ring basis are allowed a chance to flourish, at least. I think the environment's a lot more flexible. And the variety, I think, makes the matches stand out on their own. Number 2 for me would be the product. It feels way less glossy and more authentic than WWE's. It feels like there's an ecosystem in place that it feels alive. In WWE, their entrances are fucking practiced a million times and put on Twitter to show Triple H taking credit for his genius direction skills. But it's like that they want all of their entrances in WWE to be no different than 2K. The exact same every time. Ripley's going to do her high leg stomp. Jay's going to yeet. Bianca's skipping to the ring, blah, blah, blah. But in AEW, people have a lot more leeway to kind of freestyle a little bit and do different things in their entrance. There's more room for using different finishes. It's not always the same. It's not locked in stone every time. They might try outside the box angles. Some stuff can be great and some stuff can be horrible. But the promotion feels like a full ecosystem of wrestlers and not just guys locked into feuds with each other. WWE's definitely shown flashes getting better at that, though, I will say, particularly at like Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber. But I definitely think AEW has them beat with that. My third thing would be working with other companies. I mean, you said it yourself. I can't really say much more, but I think WWE tries to give crumbs of this with Noah and AAA, a little bit with Marigold, but there's a hell of a lot more of this in AEW. They've got multiple crossover shows with New Japan per year. And anytime the CMLL guys can come in, be involved, it's almost always going to lead to matches that aren't just great, but really different to their norm, and it adds a unique flavor to their show at any time, and making it feel like an integral part of the wrestling world as a whole, not just in the WWE universe per se, but the AEW universe is the wrestling universe, so to speak. And you talked about the tournaments. I think that definitely counts for sure. That's obviously directly influenced by the Japanese wrestling tournaments we all love so much. I definitely agree with that for sure. The fourth, the inverts of one of my biggest problems with WWE. I think the entrance music is unquestionably better on the whole than WWE. Even that Mina song that everyone hated was way better than most WWE songs and could have grown on everyone. Obviously, Tony said, "Nah, cut that." Like before the match was even over, I had to switch it there. But I think entrances again, they're such a vital part of wrestling, like the whole product, and particularly in the U.S. And I think they're like AEW on the whole is legitimately one of the best in the world at the overall aspect of this game. You know, Mikey Ruckus clearly has a ton of heart and passion for his craft. He touches on all kinds of different genres of songs for the wrestlers. And Tony Khan has shown an ability to license music as well. You know, when appropriate, which WWE should do, in my opinion. But largely, outside of like CM Punk, they choose not to for some reason. I think AEW's entrances are a great part of their product and a total strength overall. So, my 4 picks: entrances, particularly music, working with other companies, same as you, the authentic part of the ecosystem, and also the working style. Those are my 4.
Great picks. Yeah, no, I feel like it's funny because I feel like we may align way more on AEW stuff than we maybe did on WWE. So,
Okay.
The cons for me, first one, Ring of Honor. I feel like they still don't know what they want to do with it. There aren't really call-ups from Ring of Honor as so much as there are just random appearances, and I don't think when you have a Dustin and Sammy show up with the Ring of Honor tag titles to challenge the Hurt Syndicate, that's a good look for the AEW tag division because you're having to bring in these other people. I think that they need to figure out what they want to do with Ring of Honor. What exactly is it? Is it your NXT? Is it a completely separate brand with mainstream wrestlers? You know, what is it? How does it factor in? And please stop bringing Ring of Honor wrestlers onto AEW television. Like, make it meaningful, make it make sense. Don't just throw them on because you're not booking the main show well enough. Um, Number 2, the tertiary title divisions: TNT, Continental, Tag Team, Trios. These are pretty much non-existent divisions, and I think we've talked about this before, but I really wish that AEW would create divisions. You know, they had their ranking systems, but allowing people to declare, I'm going to go for the TNT title, right? Have it be like, you know, where it's the top 5 ranked wrestlers for the TNT title. Have it be kind of like that UFC, you know, matchmaking style. I think would be really cool, even if it's just for a couple, right? Or whatever, like give some title a gimmick. But Okada's reign has been an absolute nothing burger, right? Just it's it's like they're just holding him on ice until they can break the Kenny Omega glass. Which it definitely looks like they're working towards, and I think that they may unify the titles. But at the same time, like, it's just that title feels like it's completely centered around the C2, and they have no plans for it the other 11 months of the year. And they really got to figure that out because having too many titles, you know, like Okada does not feel like a continental champion so much as he just has a belt prop. The TNT division has not felt prominent for a very long time now. Like that Garcia Cole feud felt like one of the most, like, hey, we're going to do 3 matches, multi-weeks booking, and it's just like has the visibility of Dana Brooke and Sarah, what was her name? Sarah Logan on like WWE main event, it feels like. Um, so yeah, just really needs to again invest the same level of effort into all your title divisions because right now there's too many, and I feel like it always feels like there's too many when there's not enough quality surrounding the titles. If there was great stories around all these titles, you wouldn't be complaining that there's too many because all of them feel justified, right? Next, the roles of veterans in the company: Edge, Jeff Jarrett, Chris Jericho. I feel like the only one that's really succeeded so far has been Sting, and they're maybe trying to replicate like these runs, these goodbye for veterans runs. Let's get everything in. Let's put him in the world title scene. And, and part of it feels like maybe Tony's a guy where he's like, they've busted their ass so much in wrestling for so long, like they're owed this, right? We have to give it to them. And I don't mean to sound like cruel here, but no, like just because these guys did a lot back in the day does not mean like you need to feature them prominently now. I think we saw them retcon this and kind of realize it with Jericho going on a hiatus, Edge. I think, is Edge injured or is he on a hiatus again? He's worked injured.
Yeah, they did the injury angle with FTR, yeah.
Yep. And Jarrett, they canceled that MJF god awful feud. But still, like when I look at some of when I had to really sit down and think about what are the things that I don't look forward to watching by AEW, which was honestly hard to think about. So for me, though, I was like, I don't like seeing the veterans in prominent roles in any way whatsoever. It always gives Muto, which I don't like. And finally, the women's division. It's gotten better. I think it can still be a lot better. So, what about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I think there are actually more flaws than that. It wasn't that hard for me to think, in my opinion. I think there are definitely some issues with this company for sure. I think the women's division is like my top pick. Like to me, they're like the tag team scene in WWE. There's so many great talents, and it's not anybody's fault of theirs, really. To me, it's really hard to deny and hard to ignore that their Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm are at a certain level, and then everyone else is at a secondary level way, way below them in terms of the interest of the booking. Like the effort put into them and their stories is so much more consistent, so much more prominent than everyone else. And and on top of it, this is like the entire division in a lot of ways have suffered because of the obvious, like I mentioned it with Fletcher among the men, that he's clearly one of the chosen people, like that they're focusing on, and that's worked out great. Like that's cool. But in the women's division, they keep rolling the dice, and I'm not against rolling the dice on younger talents like a Sky Blue, Anna Jay, Penelope. But not making them the freaking workhorses of the division where they're the ones on TV every week and Stat and Willow are not. I think that's a big flaw. Even Julia, although I would say Julia Hart has shown more than those other names I mentioned, I think that she's a lot better than an Anna Jay as an overall package overall. But to me, those girls should be the one in the Ring of Honor's women's division and getting seasoning. Willow, Stat, they should be at Dynamite every week. What is he seeing and who he pushes, and why are things so one-sided towards Mercedes? Other than obviously that she got the biggest contract, like that's a big part of it, I'm sure. But still, why is there all these multitude of Japanese women under contract on the bench for months on end? It sucks. I think the women's division has gone back to like the worst parts of it, where there's only one match a week, and maybe you'll have some promos featuring the names I mentioned that are the ones gifted, so to speak. I think the titles in general, what you said was so true, and it's hard to really go in. With WWE, they have a ton of titles, but are artificially benefited by having them divided across 3 shows. In AEW, they have this multitude of titles and divisions, and all of them are either poorly booked, ill-defined, or redundant. None of their titles, outside of perhaps the women's belts, because Mercedes and Tony's have been booked so OP, feel like they're important. The worst defender of all of those titles you mentioned, to me, is the world title itself, unfortunately. Like, yeah, this Death Rider story sucks. It's not just me saying that's been universally panned, but it's not like it's a new issue. Go look at the history of this belt. They've yet to book a truly great world title reign since 2021, with Omega legitimately great. There were some okay ones with Hangman and Joe. Hangman kind of got derailed by the Punk stuff, and unfortunately that's how that went. The Joe was a good. It stabilized the title after the MJF just totally tanked the value of it. The tag team division is getting sucked into the MJF story now, and the trios titles are completely mismanaged. So here's what I would do. Now that since we both agree on this division thing, I'm going to throw a solution idea out at you here, okay? The first thing I would do, merge the Continental and International titles. The Continental Classic is for a world title shot, the first at the start of a new year, and the winner will both get a big-ass trophy and a comically oversized check. Tony Khan, if you are listening, please use my ideas. You don't even have to credit me, but listen to my ideas. The comically oversized check. That is the key. But the title is gone. Like, there's a total waste of time. It adds nothing. It only waters down the belts. Both the TNT and TBS titles will be personally announced. This is not an internal monologue. This will be announced and made known to everyone. There is now a rule that the TNT and TBS titles must be defended every single time their show is on that network. These are really and truly your workhorse titles, okay, in my AEW. It's stated they represent the TV networks. It's stated explicitly every week, you will get a TNT title shot. I don't care who the champion is. On Collision and on Dynamite, the TBS champion, that guarantees a women's match. It forces you out of your comfort zone a little bit. You can still book all the Mercedes and Tony angles you want. But now you have a workhorse title. You represent the networks. These titles now have meaning. They have purpose. The trios titles need to get totally revamped. There is an explicit rule. I wouldn't do that where it's like, so, the team must win every week. But I want to have an internal memo. Make these the fun titles. I want crazy combinations of teams, random ass 3 people going in there, fast-paced matches. Give everyone on the roster virtually a chance to fight for these belts at some point. Bring in people from other companies. Have it noted, once a month there will be a trio from another company or even a Ring of Honor. Make the belts have a purpose. And finally, to solve this problem, take the damn world title out of that stupid-ass briefcase. What do you think of my ideas to fix the belts before I move on?
I'm into them. I like the TNT and TBS to being defended regularly. I think when the TNT title was the workhorse title, that's when it was most interesting. You had a lot of really cool people show up, from an Eddie Kingston to a Ricky Starks, people that you wound up signing to major contracts and putting in serious roles. And I don't think that happens without that approach and methodology. So yeah, love the ideas.
Absolutely. And make that a part of the story. How many times have we seen somebody get a big run for a week or two and then disappear for 2 months? With the title, the appeal of winning the title isn't just a belt. It's a guaranteed match every week. Like, you will never lose your spot as long as you're the champion. And I think that would make them important. You get one of the Continental belt, and everything has purpose, and you get the title out of the briefcase as well. The usage going on, and it's kind of to piggyback off of your point that you made, the usage of Ring of Honor is even worse than NXT. Now, look, I know they're in a tough spot, okay? I know this. Tony, if you're listening, I know this. I'm sure somebody sold themselves on it being no different than New Japan being behind a paywall. A Ring of Honor back in the old days, 2006-07, they weren't on TV. You had to buy the DVDs to watch them. Or pirate them, I guess, if you're some people. I don't know who would do that, but that's the only way you could see them, more or less. Like, somebody sold them that, but the fact is, this version of Ring of Honor simply doesn't even come close to having the emotional cachet that New Japan or the old school Ring of Honor had to do that. I would completely revamp everything. Like, unique roster, new era, all exclusive guys. Like, these guys are done on AEW for the next year straight. I would have, again, this is an internal memo. I would say, I don't care if 10 people miss flights or get injured all in the same day. Nobody from Ring of Honor will appear on AEW for the next year straight. And every single weekly show will now be free on YouTube. Being on Honor Club is death. Whatever money they're getting from these 5,000, 10,000 people they're subscribing to, they're not worth being so far off the radar. You need to make Ring of Honor a thing again and build it up. Get a mix of guys with Ring of Honor history. You got a lot of those. Have you noticed their roster? There's a ton of guys with old school Ring of Honor history that they have. They've got promising young talents. They could make true Ring of Honor guys. And they tried it with Athena, and all it's done is harm her and make her great work go unnoticed by the masses. It didn't accomplish anything. Maybe a veteran like Dustin, like you've got that now. You know, I don't mind that per se. But I would plan a year straight of Ring of Honor on YouTube. Maybe you could work out something like the Roku channel, like New Japan has, or like an Access level. Something that's not a real deal, but it gives you a chance to make an announcement. You know, be in sports with MLW, that type of deal. It doesn't matter. You're not making any money. But the main thing is it's free on YouTube. You're taping them on AEW shows anyway. Change the logos. Tell your cameraman, whoever's shooting this, get all different people, shoot this freaking show differently, the Dynamite. I want it to look different. Maybe switch the hard camera side. Maybe have the camera focused on the ring or, you know, looking at the stage, something like that. Shoot it differently. Make it more than just dark with a different logo on the ring apron, which is what it's become. After a year, now here we're going to get to some fantasy booking now, Nello. So I want to hear your thoughts on this idea I'm about to throw at you here, and all the listeners as well. I would love to hear your thoughts as well. I'm sure you're familiar with a classic feud of the Indies and Ring of Honor known as the Ring of Honor and CZW feud of the mid-2000s. You remember all that, right?
Yep.
Go back. That would be the homework I would have for Tony Khan and everyone involved with whoever's booking this. Watch that feud. Mirror the old Ring of Honor CZW feud, but this time Ring of Honor's in the CZW role. You build after a year straight of making Ring of Honor its own thing. It's free on YouTube. You've built up fans. People seeing it more now. Then you run your invasion angle. Now, who would I have in the leader of the CCW role, the Chris Hero, so to speak, of this version? Who do I have? Bryan Danielson, the Ring of Honor Hall of Famer. Get him to work ahead. He doesn't have to work every week.
This is real fantasy booking, magical fantasy, really.
Well, he did say he could come back if you need him. To be fair, he has honestly, like he has a total. Like, if we're going with this now, this happening, his reasoning to turn on AEW is totally legit. Not a single soul came back out to help him when he was getting killed by the Death Riders last year. So now he's in to have revenge.
He's like, and when I went into the back, the whole Ring of Honor roster was there to check on me.
They did a kind of similar story with Eddie Kingston, remember? Where
yeah.
Yeah, like AEW like turned into bullshitters, and he had to go to Ring of Honor for real wrestling. They completely dropped that because they brought him back on AEW. But still, you have the skeleton of this already. Wrestle a handful of matches. Some of them really short, like squash type of matches. Culminate with Bryan winning the Ring of Honor title one more time, and he is now the face of the company. That draws more fans on Ring of Honor. And it culminates in either a Survivor Series or a Cage of Death type of match, if you want to go to it. Blood and guts, whatever you want to call it. I would build it to the Legends of Ring of Honor Super Team versus the Heart and Soul of AEW. And this would be a major pay-per-view, okay? Get a load of this match. The Cage of Death. Or if Bryan can't do that, you just do something, a lesser version of this, a Survivor Series match.
You're bringing Bryan back from retirement to do Cage of Death. You don't want this guy to be able to play with his children. You're like, we're breaking the neck. We're severing the C2 and the C3.
Well, to be honest, he doesn't even have to do anything crazy. And like in whatever match you have, like whatever this match would be, this is the end of the storyline. Like all he needs is to be taken out for good.
No, they're doing like Cage of Death 5. It's the one where like the metal fences are suspended in the air. They got the ring underneath with 30,000 thumbtacks.
Nothing like that, because like Ring of Honor has a different aesthetic than CZW, so that wouldn't really work. It had to be a Ring of Honor specialty gimmick match, like a pure Survivor Series match or some bullcrap like that. The point is, it builds to a major match. Okay, so check this out. Bryan Danielson leads his Ring of Honor super team. It's Bryan Danielson teaming with Nigel McGuinness, the thing that I never got that I wanted the last time. Nigel jumped ship. He's now the commentator of Ring of Honor in my fantasy booking. It's Bryan, Nigel, Samoa Joe, Roddy Strong, and Mark Briscoe as the heart of Ring of Honor. All former champions, and Mark was the tag team champion. Mark's representing the Spirit of Jay, who would be the logical fifth man in this team, or he's still with us. God rest his soul. They take on Omega, Hangman, the Young Bucks, and Swerve, the heart and soul of AEW. AEW obviously wins. Bryan's done at that point, but you've established Ring of Honor on the level of AEW without really losing that much. Like, you don't really lose anybody. Yes, you have some Ring of Honor guys that are stars, but let's be honest. Joe is kind of a main guy, but if they lost to Paragon and Mark Briscoe, what does AEW truly lose with that? Other than some great matches, which they have a ton of people on this roster that can do similarly quality matches that don't get any TV time. You've got Bandito, Rush, Undisputed Era. You know, you could give Ring of Honor some guys. I don't understand why they have such a death grip on these people. Like, you could lose guys and it would be fine, and also give you more time to focus on the AEW proper roster. So long story short, make Ring of Honor free and different to AEW, then try your hand at getting a TV deal. Not just, hey, we're putting the belt on Jericho, so that'll give us a TV deal. That hasn't worked 3 times. You've done it. Stop it. Also, it gives us Bryan having one more one, which I like. Easy motivation. Nobody in AEW saved him from the Death Riders. And you get a dramatic classic moment that I think would be true to the spirit of not just Ring of Honor, but AEW. Again, a match that WWE could never do. What do you think?
It's a dream, and I wish it would come true. But God, it's cool. But like, I wish the stars could align for this. I think that.
Do you think they can at least make the show free and get it off of Honor Club? I'll settle for that.
No, I completely agree with that. I think that they should fill the AEW dark hole on YouTube with Ring of Honor. Like you said,
make it different though. Like,
the amount of subscribers that they have, is that value you make each month worth more than the value of getting it in front of more people and being able to actually build the brand versus, like you said, keeping it behind the paywall?
And just having guys, like you said, just having guys randomly come in and muddy the waters of the show with stuff that doesn't need to be there for a brand that nobody really cares about. Like I said, make it different from AEW. Like, get people involved that aren't along with the AEW ride, and do this its own way and build it into something to where you could make it. You could get an A storyline out of it if you were to go that route. But again, like I said, I just think that they have a lot of people that they don't use barely at all that they could put on Ring of Honor, and it wouldn't hurt anybody. Obviously, like, Bryan coming back is like, like you said, the stars have to align. But the others, like, if they left AEW doesn't lose anything without them. And they would help Ring of Honor a lot at the end of the day. So put effort into it, which I don't think they're doing at the end of the day. That's the fact of the matter. You've wasted all of our time with this. Enough is enough. Get it off TV if you don't want to put effort into it. Like, let it be what it is, whatever. But whatever. Finally, probably the most important weakness of AEW to me. This is my number 4 pick. I think it's lost. It's not the cool company to be in anymore. They've lost the cool factor. They've lost the ability to say, hey, like, this is where you want to be if you're an indie worker. And on top of it, even to their own guys, WWE is still firmly where it's truly considered making it in wrestling. We saw that with Penta. All of these AEW guys were on Twitter congratulating him and saying how proud they were of him. What? Like, you just debuted on Raw. Like, if I were Tony Khan and I were in charge, I would call every one of those people into a meeting and be like, what are you guys doing? And now look, the boys are always going to be more important than any promotional loyalty or anyone like that. to pretty much every single wrestler except maybe Freakin', Freakin' Rollins. But the hope you have is going to WWE is seen as a downgrade in every way except financially. If they offer more, that's one thing. But it needs to be a clear downgrade in every other way. And there's a time that feeling was there. But it's not anymore. And I think a lot of it is not being different enough from WWE. They've gotten better recently, for sure. But there are way too many times of WWE isms that they can't beat them at. I really go back to that era. I mentioned it before. Bringing in Rick Ross, Trina, Fabulous. I loved all those people's work in terms of music. Again, I'm not a hater on that. Well, maybe not Rick Ross. He was a one-hit wonder. I didn't think he was that good of a rapper. But the fact is, this is my era of music we're talking about. But if that's the level of star you have to come with in 2025, then just don't use them at all. In general, don't have celebrities on your show. The thing is, when you said that being a negative on WWE, it's true as a fan, I feel that way. But also, they do have the ability to get biggest stars in the world that AEW have not been able to get. And I know Tony probably has fun with it, but to be honest, it's kind of a bad look for the show to have Young Gravy. Or that horrible interview with the star of Queen of the Ring that said, no, we know who would win before the fans do. What? Use that against WWE. Like, what you said should be... Somebody in AEW should be writing down what you said and putting that into promo materials to show why WWE sucks. Omega did it in his recent interviews. They over-rely on the celebrities, which I think a lot of fans would get behind that sentiment. That, yes, maybe a lot of non-fans may be into Bad Bunny and Logan Paul and all these assholes that they bring in. But no true wrestling fan wants to see Logan Paul versus Mr. Beast. Argue that point. Don't go into it with WWE Light. Show us that will never be what AEW is about. Do things differently, which has been better, which you have done better, but the format of the show is still the same, and there are a lot of issues that I think would get the vibes back to where they need to be. So what do you think about that? They've lost the cool company factor.
I think, like, they have had a lot of really quality signings lately, which could speak against that in the sense of maybe to us it doesn't have that front-facing coolness, but like people like Speedball, Alexander, Kevin Knight, and again, we don't know if there were offers from the other company, but like for a lot of wrestlers, this seems like it is still the cool company to go to and the one that they want to. So I agree with that in terms of I think that WWE blows them out of the water in terms of mainstream presentation and coolness factor and what it, like, oh, Travis Scott is there versus a Young Gravy, right? Like that's going to make you feel a lot more or a lot less judged or weird for watching the product. You can't explain Young Gravy to the friends that are over watching wrestling for the first time. You're just like, yeah, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's really fucking terrible. This is one of those times. But yeah, no, in that sense I can agree, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they lost the cool company, Ring of Honor booking, the title division, same as you. And then the women's division is like that would be the number one thing I wish could change. Would be more focused on the women, but yeah. So we hit that. Now we get to the roster stuff here. I know you put some thought into this, so let's see what we got here.
All right.
Who are your four pillars? It will not be MJF, Sammy, and Jack Perry, and all the rest.
Right.
Yeah,
Darby.
Yeah, and then Darby. Yes.
So I feel like three are very evident, and then my fourth is probably the curveball.
I have the same as you. I wonder if you're going to pick the same curveball as me. I'm really excited to see this now.
Number one, Hangman Page, the beating heart and soul of AEW. He is what Cody Rhodes thought he was. There is no wrestler that I think of more when I think of the three letters AEW. He is that fucking guy to me. And next, Swerve Strickland. I think he is the megastar that the company made. He is the future. Will Ospreay, greatest wrestler in the company. I mean, this guy puts on a fucking show every single time he's in there. I think he is really transitioned well to the national television role, a lot better than some of the other New Japan talent. And yeah, just phenomenal guy. I imagine him getting the title. I really hope Hangman wins the Owen, just because, and I'm
Yeah.
gaslighting myself into it because it's in Texas, right? Which feels huge for Hangman to win the world title back in Texas, his home state. Like, come on, AEW, please. I
Wouldn't
think
it be
Osprey
funny
will get
though?
his time very soon, though.
Wouldn't it be funny though that they had the chance to put Osprey over in England and instead they do it in Texas, like afterwards when they should have done with the cowboy character? That would be kind of funny to me. But I totally agree with you. I think Hangman should win as well.
And then finally, my number fourth pick, I think this is like the mascot of AEW in terms of like the most lovable guy. I still think that he can absolutely carry a main event world title scene, and he's one of my favorite characters, Orange Cassidy. I
Oh,
still
okay.
think there's so much upside to this guy. I think once he comes back, he's going to be so celebrated. I'm just hyped to see him back. And again, like, I think that they've shown that you can get miles out of this guy when people thought you could only get a match. And I feel like there's still so many more ripples you can add into his character and whatnot. Um, and then for my women's pillars, number one, Tony Storm. She feels like the biggest wrestler in the company right now. I think that, before we talked about during her first run, her in ring not quite being as good as her non wrestling performance, right? And I feel like she is totally married the two now, where, um, where like her in ring is so goddamn good. And all of these eliminator matches, she's really helped give a spotlight to so many different women lately. Arguably the best storyline this year with Mariah May. It's forever Tony time, in my opinion. Next, Mercedes Monet, the 1B to Tony's 1A. I really think as good as she thinks she is, I will gas her up in that sense.
Will you pay
Um,
$100 to text her?
no.
Okay, she's not that great.
No,
She's
no,
pretty
no.
great.
To be fair, the only person I would pay $100 to text in pro wrestling would probably be, oh, let's see here. I don't know, actually. I worked myself into a shoot here.
You see, no, please don't pay $100 to text anyone in any walk of life.
Fair. Um, Mercedes is money. Next, Chris Statlander, and then fourth, Willow Nightingale. Same reason for both of them. Best wrestlers, wildly unutilized still. I think that if you had these four pillars as your world champ, TBS champ, and tag champs, these four could carry the divisions for the next 2 years. And I still think that as long as they're doing as well as they are now, people would not fucking complain. Um, I think that Chris and Willow were both like next in line for some titles. And again, I think that if you wanted to introduce a women's tag division, because they do have a good amount of women now that you could absolutely lead it with Stat and Willow. They feel like that Bailey Sasha pairing kind of deal, right? And then finally, my tag pillars. Number one, we hurt people. The Hurt Syndicate. They are so fucking good at what they're doing right now that literally the other teams are just getting squashed. It's all been squash matches. Top
And the
Flight got
fans
their
love
ass.
it.
Yes, like that's the thing is they literally have outshined the entire tag division so much that like the rest are jobbers, which is fucked up. Um, my next two are probably boring picks, but I think that in terms of whenever they step in the ring and the way that they're able to elevate other talent, and when they're good, they're great. Young Bucks and FTR. And then finally, this is my dark horse pick, but they had one of my favorite tag matches that I can always think about. It was Birch and Lorcan versus the Undisputed Era, but Paragon, the team of Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly. I think that they're such a good duo. You need a stiff striking, technical duo like that. And I feel like they could really mix it up super well with Hurt Syndicate, Young Bucks, or FTR. They're just not being featured a lot right now, from what I can tell. I don't really watch Collision, but yeah, I'd like to see them being featured in a more prominent spot. And those are my trios of pillars. What do you think?
Well, thankfully they've taken Collision off the table for you, at least the last half of the show. We're in the last night's episode. Um, I think all of those are great picks. To be honest with you, we're gonna have a lot of similarities. I think here. Um, I really think of everybody. We did have a different fourth curveball. We're gonna see if mine beats yours, because I think I went really off the path. I think the top three are so obvious, like Hangman, Ospreay, and Swerve, that they'd be like almost. If we did a poll of like every AEW viewer and they said pick 3 of the top 5 wrestlers, or like list your top 5 wrestlers, all 3 of those would be at least 80% of the AEW fan base. Like, and I think that there's like so strongly there that they deserve it, and I 100% agree with it. I think Hangman should win the tournament and the title as well afterwards. Again, we have a lot of similarities with the women. In both cases, we have 3 of the 4 the same. So I can't really add on to that. I think that, they all have great qualities to them. And I have come around on Tony as an overall package. I still don't love the gimmick, but only because I just prefer more straightforward ass kickers like Willow and Stat. Like pretty much. Like that's the problem, is that I just love their style so much that anyone else I'll think lesser of. But she's done an exceptional job with it. There's no doubt that that's true. In terms of the tag team, it really scares me what they're doing with Hurt Syndicate, like this MJF stuff. I don't know why they're going this route, but there's still time, and they've kind of left the door open that this may still end in what I said it should end in, as in them destroying MJF with the contract, and the table, and the lawyer, and everything else. But if he's with them, I really worry how this group could go. Personally, Paragon. What do you think of the name? Like, I get that they wanted to move on from Undisputed because it's so linked to the NXT stuff. I like their shirt that they came out with because they had a promo on Collision. They had a really nice shirt.
Generic ass name. I could say Paragon, and you could put any fucking wrestler into that group, and you'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Because okay,
it doesn't fit them at all. Like, there's nothing about them that makes them paragons of anything.
Like, it has the hype level of the conglomeration, just like lame ass names.
The conglomeration kind of worked because that was almost the point, right? It's like Orange Cassidy and these random ass people. That would be his friend. That made no sense. Why is he hanging out with Tomohiro Ishii? Who cares? Like, if Tomohiro Ishii and fucking Mark Briscoe, like what difference does it make? With this, the Paragon to me would be like, I think about Mass Effect. If you guys, if we got any listeners that have played that, Paragon was always what they called the good guy choices in Mass Effect. So I feel like this should be like a very either honorable babyface or like Mordecai, like level heel, like a righteous heel. This does not fit their characters at all. So I don't know how they came up with that. They should have just kept Undisputed, whatever. Like, they want to move on from Kingdom, that's fine. Just call them Undisputed. It's fine. But they're a great tag team. I did say Roddy would be in my 5-man main event, like Ring of Honor AEW Survivor Series match or whatever. I would have O'Reilly and Cole reform Future Shock for one night only on my show. But otherwise, yeah. FTR Bucks, like, they're truly, in real life, pillars of the division. And I think they're always going to have a big role. So for mine, I agree. Again, 3 out of 4, we totally agree on Hangman, Ospreay, and Swerve. My 4th man, the man I think is criminally underrated. I think he may very well be the best promo in the company. If he's not, he's in the top 3. And I think he's also a phenomenal worker. One of, maybe not the best at this point, but one of the best. He's got a natural crowd connection that can't be replicated. you are now looking at Dylan's AEW, the next AEW World Champion, Mark Briscoe, in there. He's my fourth pillar.
That makes sense. You love Mark. I love that.
And I think talent-wise, I think he's so underutilized. Like the thing is, that sounds crazy because of how they booked him, not because of his talent level. And I think it's unfortunate because I think he has so much to offer, and he's doing goofy stuff all the time. And I think he's got like a ton of upside at this point because we've yet to see that main event run that he could have. Like rookie season, like when he went all, winless for most of the first CC. Like that's my guy. I think he could really be a great player. So this is again, I'm kind of arguing. Like I think you went with like very much the logical picks, and there's always one that I have kind of an argument against that I take out with WWE and this with Mercedes. I feel like, again, she's better off as an attraction role. Like, her best feature is her in dream matches, so to speak. Like, that's where she's really gotten to shine. Because, remember, those first 6 months, they tried to make her a weekly fixture, and it wasn't good. Like, her promo skills are not even below average. They're one of the worst in the company. You cannot get good storylines with her, really, outside of ones based around wrestling, like just purely in-ring stuff. And the thing is, when you do those in-ring stuff, she's proven to be awesome. Like, probably the best worker. Like, you could easily make that argument. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Among the women. I might go with Stat, but still. Mercedes is an incredible in-ring performer. I don't love the idea of building my weekly TV show with her as a main character because I think her promos just are not there. Like overall, like and you're not getting to use her. Like, okay, if her role was to be like the TBS champion in my version, where it's defended every week, that's perfect for Mercedes. Like if I could do that, then that would be her role. But they've not used her that way. Like, she doesn't wrestle every week, and she rarely wrestles at all on TV. It's always, like I said, kind of like dream matches for the most part, which she's been great in for a long time now. But that, to me, is why I would rather go with Athena as my fourth pillar, because that's someone who could be a great character. They basically had her as the main star of Ring of Honor, as shoddy of a job as they did promoting Ring of Honor. Everyone who watched knows that she was the best part of it. I think that you could get a lot of her out of her as a character and also as an in-ring performer. Unfortunately, they clearly don't agree with that. As like she basically had a chance to do something for All In, and we haven't gotten there yet. Maybe they'll get back to her, but she was there, much like Billy. They brought her in for a week or two, and now that seems to be it. And I hope that they have more for her. But the thing is, again, Mercedes, love her to death, great wrestler. I love her to death as a wrestler. There's some stuff I don't love about her, actually, in general. But still, a fantastic wrestler. I think Athena would be my fourth pick, though. For the tag team, we agree on Hurt Syndicate and Roddy and Kyle, the Paragon. I think I had two differences here. Well, the thing is, okay, the third would be, for me, Rush and Drilistico. We just saw them on Collision last night. Ooh. They got a good angle. Rush pointed his finger at Okada, which would be a great, like, he might force Okada to actually try. Rush is wild enough to do it. I'm up for it. But I think these guys are great. Drilistico has really shown improvements on Collision the last few times. And Rush is a guy, he's another one. Like, he's more underrated than Briscoe. Like, you don't see him ever on TV. When was the last time he was on Dynamite? A year ago, it feels like? They're always stuck in this Collision void. It's time to use these guys as a top tag team. What they need to do, in my version, because now we have the Hurt Syndicate, they cannot help but be baby faces because the crowd loves them too much. We need a truly heel, ass-kicker, violent team. And that is what I'm going with Rush and Drilistico. They just beat ass. Like, that's all they do. That's what I use them for. And they can have crazy brawls. So, I'm about to potentially break the rules and color outside the lines again. Here. Because... And I have a backup plan for this, too. Much like my other ones, in case you think I'm cheating a little bit. So I again, if this doesn't work, if you don't agree with what I'm about to say, we will substitute FTR in because I do think they're great workers. Character moments, I think they're a little over the top as both baby faces and heels, but not too much that I would not use them. Like they would still be one of my top tag teams, and they would be anyway, even if they're not one of the pillars. I want to see an Omega tag team in here. I want to see Omega team with somebody. I personally would turn Takeshita babyface and have Omega and Takeshita have an extended tag run because you can't really use Takeshita as a pillar right now with how they booked them. And Omega, you probably don't want in that role truly as the world champion, so to speak. But I think them as a tag team would have exciting matches. You could protect Omega's body. You get more TV time for Takeshita and not with Don Callis. I would put Takeshita and Omega together as a team. What do you think of that idea? Fantasy booking once again.
Takeshita and who again?
Omega.
Oh,
DDT brothers.
I really do feel like Kenny is past his like after this Okada thing, right? I think that you can slot out Kenny from like this main event single stuff and really put him into a role like that. Because I think wherever Kenny goes, he'll bring exposure there. And the tag division needs it.
Yeah, so I hope that it doesn't have to be Takeshita, but that's just who I would have picked. But I love the idea of Omega in a tag team. Like for that exact
tag team with Hangman was probably one
amazing.
Of the best, probably the best tag title run in AEW history.
That's like AEW's answer to Misawa and Kobashi as a tag team, pretty much. Like in all Japan, like two legendary main eventers who also made one of the best tag teams ever at the same time. So yeah, like I said, mostly similarities. We're on the same page, but some differences there. Surprised you didn't feel my Mark Briscoe shout out as much.
No, I loved it. It's very on brand for you, and I could totally see it. And I think that if you're going to strike on a Mark Briscoe, you need to strike now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like we literally have a 3-year run, probably. That's like the max, and probably a little longer. A little shorter. Yeah. So yeah.
All right. So moving into my future prospects. So
yeah,
for the men's, number one, Kyle Fletcher. I think that he really is evolved and leveled up. Like his in-ring is so damn good. He really feels like a freakishly next-gen Orton. He can do promos now. He can be menacing. His look is fucking crazy. Like, remember how we always used to talk about his haircuts and stuff and like how he was talking about he was always trying to find his look? I feel like he's kind of found his look now, at least for this iteration of his character. And that's cool to see. Next, another bald-headed bastard, Ricochet. This dude has increased his stock so much since coming into the company, and I think he can really play any role from like blood feud heel in this in this swerve feud to like just absolute chicken shit heel like in the Zach Gowen match. I think he would be a really fun champion because his in-ring completely would back it up. And God, like I don't know. There's few other wrestlers that I look forward to watching as much as Ricochet now, as crazy as that sounds. I really enjoy his character. I think with the Young Bucks behind him, he could really enter the main event scene. And yeah, so after that, Konosuke Takeshita. Love this guy. Really next gen talent. Just like Kobashi 2.0, really. If there was a Kena Kobashi for the, I just keep saying next generation people now, but it's where my mind's at. Like this guy is a perfect pro wrestler, and I think he just needs the storylines to get him there. And then finally, and this is probably where we'll disagree, and I'll completely acknowledge here that I don't think this person has even touched upon their capabilities in this company remotely, except outside of the C2 finals. But Kazuchika Okada, he's still one of your biggest signings. It's like, in the NBA, I want to think of him as a Jimmy Butler in his final season with the Heat versus a Bradley Beal in the most recent season with the Suns, right? I think that this Omega feud is what they've been waiting for. I think it's what he's needed. And I think that if Omega wasn't injured, they would have pulled the trigger on it a lot sooner. But I still think that you could have done a lot more for him in the meantime. But that said, he's still incredibly protected. And they have succeeded in that to where he does feel relatively unbeatable. And yeah, I think that he has a lot to offer. And if they are able to tap into it and actually find a presentation that's not just him saying bitch and get the best wrestler in the world back into his role, I think you can really do a lot with him. And then finally, my women's pillars. Number one,
one thing while I just want to say one thing about Okada. His segment on Collision was pretty funny. So Speedball had a match, and Speedball called out Okada and was like, "Hey, let's do a match." And then Okada was like, "You're a bitch." He did say that. And then suddenly Rush and Dorlisco beat the shit out of Speedball, and Rush like walked up to the front of the ring and pointed menacingly at Okada, and Okada had this comical, like scared look on his face, like I gotta go, and he like shuffled backwards to the entranceway. It was very funny. Okada's comedic timing is actually good. I just wanted to say that.
Absolutely. And I want him to do more than that, because in the ring, he's like a generational killer. And then outside of the ring, he's like a goofball. And I think that they need to figure out, kind of like Tony, how to marry those two. So anything else for that?
All of the problem with all four of these men are, I wouldn't write off any of them winning the world title within 3 years. I think Fletcher is phenomenal. Like, he's done a great job, way overexceeded my expectations for when he was in Aussie Open. I actually thought about like reuniting him and Davis as a team for like a tag title run could be something good. But I think that they have huge plans for him, and deservingly so. Like, he's a great heel. Ricochet of the same ilk of like a chicken shit heel. That match with Zach Gowen, he was like really great as a heel. Like, it was really cool. Okada, yeah, the thing is, like, he's a little bit older, like, but I do think he's another one of these guys that's like, I feel like in 3 years, where will Okada be? You know, that's something interesting to think about. Like, will he still be doing this, or like are they gonna find a way to move him away from his current role?
Oh,
I mean, do we know who's gonna be in Anarchy in the Arena? Is he in that match?
I believe so. And
okay.
To me, like, I could totally see your next. First off, AEW likes to do long title reigns for the most part, like especially with their world championships. To me, your next three champions are Hangman and Swerve getting their second reigns, and an Ospreay getting his first reign. I feel like you can do Hangman, and then you have him drop to Ospreay or Swerve, and then just vice versa with the next run. So, like, those three guys definitely feel like the next three people in line, which is why, I mean, that could be the next 3 fucking years, you know?
Fletcher is a prospect, for sure. And I think Takeshita would count as that too. The other two, I just feel like they're a little old for this is all. But I didn't say that, though. I didn't say they had to be a certain age. I said they could not win the title in 3 years, which is reasonable. And I think Ricochet as a heel champion, I'm all for that. I think that would be great. Okada, I think we have to see it from him, because I really feel like that Omega match is going to be great. But it's everything else. Again, it's the weekly part. It's like Mercedes. Like, as a weekly person, he's such a one-note character that I don't know. And they have to move him away from that. But I wouldn't write them off. Like I said, I wouldn't write those guys off for winning within 3 years, let alone after. So I think it's definitely possible on there. And they're good, even though I'm not a fan of Okada in AEW. But the other three I love. Takeshita is like my favorite guy to watch, for sure. And the other two, the other two are quickly nearing that list. A lot of people I've seen say that Fletcher's the best wrestler in the world. Like, people like from Segunda Caída have said that hate a lot of modern wrestling. So he's doing some great things. For sure. So those are all good picks for champions. I question the age of some of them. That's all. Who's next?
So next, my women's future pillars are Julia Hart, just has character down, promos down, a lot of stuff down at such an early age. I think she's only going to get better. Mina Shirakawa, huge signing, unbelievable charisma, like just really unbelievable charisma. You want to root for her. Lots of upside to her. Number 3, Queen Aminata. Again, I think that she is someone who is already fantastic and is only going to get better. And number 4, Megan Bain. Like, just your big time, like, can play. I don't know. I think that she's going to become like another Statlander Willow in terms of like absolutely workhorse wrestler that can tear it up with anyone in the ring. So these would be the 4 that I look to pass the torch to.
The Megasis.
The Megasis.
Julia Hart is Grandpa Ken. Like she's his favorite. So I know he's very pleased with this right now. I know that you have her in your prospects. To be honest with you, I have her too. Like Julia and Queen Aminata, just amazing talents for sure. I really have no problem with any of those. To be honest with you, like those are all good picks. So for me, the prospects for the men, I would definitely say Fletcher has to be the top one. Like still so young. You don't just have years with him; you have decades. And I think he's somebody that the company will be built around eventually. Like I said, give Tony Khan credit. Again, he identified him that he's going to be one of his guys early, and he pushed and he pushed. I remember that promo where he shaved his head at the start, like the start of all this. That promo sucked. Like the crowd was like killing him at that, and they were begging for him to leave, but they just kept going. They didn't give a crap about that. They gave him time to make mistakes. They gave him time to grow, and he's really found himself. And I think he's done a great job. My second prospect that I had listed was Hologram. I think he is going to be your true, like, top lucha star. Like the guy that you could build around as a true high flyer, junior heavyweight type of guy. He hasn't really got the exposure yet, but he's somebody that I'm really going for in the long term. And I think he's got a ton of talent. Third place to me, Big Bill. I think he's in the run with the Jericho stuff right now, but I just think he's got really good charisma. Like especially in the ring, promos are okay, not that great, but you can't teach his look. This guy's so damn big, and he wrestles really good. Like I've been so impressed with his in-ring stuff for such a big guy. I think he's a guy that I want on my team. On the bench right now, but in a few years, really give him a chance to shine. I think he's a true prospect for them. And I'm still a fan. You compare people to Jimmy Butler. You compare people to Bradley Beal. I've compared somebody to Steve Kerr on the 96 Bulls. My man, I'm still a believer in Wheeler Yuta, people. That brother is going to be something big. We've seen him as a heel get these great reactions. As a babyface, when he got to really go against Bryan and Mox, he did a phenomenal job. I think he's got a ton of upside, both as a character and as a wrestler. I think his character, for better or worse, how we've gotten here, has more cachet than pretty much any of the other guys. Like, because I thought about a Speedball and a Kevin Knight that I think are true prospects. But I think of the younger crew, I want Yuta, and I think that he could really be something in the future, either as a babyface or a heel. For the women, we agree on 3 of them. Aminata, Julia, Megan Bain. Like I said, I think Julia is the one that's been pushed the hardest, and there were times where I thought too much so, but I think that in the end, she's been able to really grow more than a lot of the other people that I mentioned earlier, and I would definitely have her on there. The character really gives her something to hook on to people as well. We'll see if that continues once the Hounds of Hell end or whatever. Like how she could transition away from that, because I don't think she's going to be the emo girl forever. But we'll see what happens. My fourth pick, I went with a true prospect here, Viva Van. Like I said, still languishing in back and forth between Ring of Honor and undercard collision matches. But I think that she has a ton of great talent, a very unique style to her. I think that she is somebody with a unique personality as well that you could really get behind and see her grow into a true stalwart of the women's division. So I'm going to go with Viva as my fourth, but otherwise I agree with your picks, Bane, Julia, and Aminata. What do you think?
Love
Yeah.
where we align. Yeah, the future pillars was really hard for me because like you also have Billy Starks. You have Athena who still hasn't hit the main roster. Like there's so much talent. Jamie Hayter. Like it's crazy. There's how much talent is on this roster. Really solid picks though.
Now you brought her up, because I would have argued against her as a prospect. She's been the champion and is in the final of the tournament. So I ask you this: who do you think is going to win that match, Mercedes or Jamie?
To me, it would make more sense if Jamie wins because they have such a good story there waiting for her and Tony. But the bigger match is Mercedes and Tony, and you want that to be your biggest show of all time. So why not, right?
And I don't think Jamie's it anymore, sadly. Like, I don't know what's happened with her since her return. I mean, this is going to be her chance. Again, I said it a week or two ago. Like, this is going to be her chance to really show that something's still there, because I really wish Stat had been in the finals. And like, in hindsight, I think that she has a lot more momentum, and she's a better wrestler at the moment. Hopefully, I did like her interview where she came out and like, because she talked about like her look and stuff, and how she's a big fan of the 70s like psychedelic rock music and all that stuff, and I think that gives her some perspective, for sure, for this kind of like Daphne Blake type of look that she's got going on. I really don't mind it. I know a lot of people have been critical of it because it's just so radically different, but I'm a fan of different. Like almost all the time, if somebody stands out, I'm into it. I just want to see her wrestle to how I know she can be. I know how great she can be. Like I need to see that against Mercedes, going in there. So I the thing with Mercedes is it's a title versus title in that case. And I think that I would prefer it, even though I don't think Hayter is that appealing of an opponent for Tony. I think that I'd rather there be two women's matches and both titles represented on the biggest show. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we were mostly agreed on the prospects. And I think even the men's prospect for like, this AEW roster is so fucking great. Like there's so much great talent on here. And again, I think the way they book their shows, it's kind of a negative in a way because there's like so much great talent that not everybody gets spotlighted. Like I said with the Ring of Honor point I was making earlier, I just named a bunch of people that have been world champions in the past. And if they lost them, it wouldn't really mean that much, only because they either don't get that much time as it is, or there's 10 other guys that could step into the same role. That's how strong this roster is on the men's side, which is going to be interesting to see how we picked our free agent signings and how we slotted them in.
So free agents?
Yes.
Again, like I approach this differently to where I'm like, these people are main roster ready, right?
Yeah.
Versus signing people to like a ROH NXT. So two are people that we talked about, I believe, on our last show, so probably aren't that big of a surprise. But Dakota Kai, I think, would be an incredible asset to the women's division. And then Braun Strowman, I still want him to
The bodyguard.
be the bodyguard for Okada and be in the elite. Like Okada calling someone a bitch as I just criticized this, and then Braun Strowman stands in front of Okada, and again, like being in the elite and being like the Young Bucks are like, yeah, this guy hates the indies. He's so elite. Like that's what he is, born and bred, baby. And then the next one, so next one is Miyu Yamashita. I think she's really elevated this past year in terms of her international appearances, mixing it up with new people from Tony to Natty to just, still doing quality work. And Tokyo Joshi, like her match with Mizuki over WrestleMania weekend was fantastic. I think she's ready for a new brand, and I think she's ready for, this. I think that you could do a feud between her and Yuka when Yuka returns. That would be really good and benefits both of them as they have a lot of history together. And then finally, my last pick, Alex Kane. Are you familiar with Alex Kane?
Yeah.
So eventually, yes, I think that this guy could fit into the Hurt business so well, and that would be the perfect introduction platform for him. His character would fit it super well. He could be the guy that takes out MJF. Like eventually, he gets signed to the Hurt business, and MJF's like, he didn't have to do anything. And they're like, yeah, he's Bomaye. He hurts people, right? I think that more so than a Cedric, like Alex Kane is someone that could really learn and evolve under the tutelage of a Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, because as sick as they are, they're both probably the two oldest champions in the company by a long shot. Like Shelton's 50 now, I think, or about to turn 50, which is crazy considering his, just an incredible wrestler. And you're going to need young blood, and I feel like Alex Kane is definitely someone that would really sink his teeth into the role and fit in well from the get-go. So those are my free agents. What about you, Dylan?
How does it feel to know that you've caused another lawsuit with MLW, this time against AEW?
Good. I'll go to court with court.
Go into court with court.
Yep.
Okay, lay out all 4 of yours in a row. I want to think about where I would have them on your roster. Visualize it for a second. Who are your 4 picks? Just lay them all out for me.
So Dakota Kai, Braun Strowman, Alex Kane, Miyu Yamashita.
Okay. I wanted to see where I would have them all in my mind for where, because we did talk about Dakota and Braun last week. Miyu is somebody I definitely think would be an interesting person. I really worry, and with me, I mean, we'll talk about mine, and I'll kind of say where I see them overall, because I had Kogar for AEW instead of WWE on there, and I think he's a more natural. I think he's a more natural fit there. So we have a double signing on our show. Like he's got a dual contract now with AEW and WWE. But I think he's a more natural signing in AEW, because here's the thing. This is my problem, and it kind of goes back to what I just said. This roster is so strong. Whoever you sign is going to have to be. There's nobody that can really just suddenly be put in the main event. Even Speedball was one of the top talents, and now look where they're at in a great role. Don't get me wrong, but still, and Jet Speed, I think, could be a definite tag team, pillar contender in the future. But I think with Kogar, you have such a unique look and crazy style. We need somebody like a madman like this on the roster that kind of carves out like his own, maybe not having a deathmatch title per se, but that would be his role. Again, like an attraction. When he comes in, you're going to get an insanely violent match that the likes of Jon Moxley and Darby Allin will probably be a part of.
What I would do is I would make the lights out match Atticus's match.
That would really work great if they did something like that. Have him want to fight like 5 people at once, with something crazy, with some scythe weapon or something like that.
If you wanted to scope creep with it, you could add in an unsanctioned title type deal too.
Yeah, that would be perfect for him. Like that would be exactly how I would use him. Right? You could put him on any.
He's in the company, but he exists outside of it. He's too violent to fight within the bounds of the company.
I think that's a great gimmick too. Every match is unsanctioned. This man's that kind of puts him over on his own. He's too important for us to not have on the show, but we can't have our hands in this because he's too fucking crazy. Yeah, I'm all for this idea, and that's what role I would use him in. I think he would fit really well there. I like the idea of him being the king of violence in WWE as well, just because it would be so insane. I would watch all of his matches, even if he's in NXT, if that happened. But in AEW, I think he could have like a really important role. Again, I would never have him like as a future world champion or anything, but he can really be a great part of the show. My second pick, Adam Priest would be somebody that I think would be. He's worked AEW before, and they've never pulled the trigger on him for some reason. Fuck her up. So they've started.
Okay.
Be another
Sorry, you just completely broke up for me. I have no idea what you said for probably the last 30 seconds.
Okay, so I'm picking. I picked Adam Priest as my another sighting.
Okay. Literally, the last thing I heard you say was about Kogar. So Adam Priest.
Oh, yeah, Priest. Yeah, AEW has embraced true Memphis stooge heels, and he's the king of that. And I think that he would be a great addition to the roster to put over all of your baby faces. And I think you could protect more of like Ricochet and Fletcher, and he would be like the one that always, that jobs out. He's been in AEW plenty of times as a jobber, but they never pulled the trigger on him as a contracted wrestler. Put this guy in here. He could be one of the guys with your million belts, be a stooge champion, piss off everybody, cut heel promos. He's a great champion in DPW right now. He's somebody that I think you could find a great spot for on the roster to not necessarily him be a great success, but more so he puts over baby faces and elevates them by ultimately beating him in feuds. Do you like that shout out with Adam Priest?
Yeah, that's a deep cut. I've mostly seen him in action and like Circle 6 and stuff. So, but whenever I see him, he's always super fun when he gets in the ring. I think he's like Roll Tide and just pisses people off, man.
Well, that is really annoying.
Fun guy.
Yeah, no Roll Tide in this house. I'm from Tennessee, motherfucker. So that won't fly for me. But yeah, I think he's a great heel, and I think he'd be a great fit. My pick for the women, I got 2 men and 2 women. I have another Yamashita. Rina coming into AEW is my pick.
Oh shit!
Yeah, the ultraviolet queen, somebody different that would fit her own role, similar to Kogar almost, still like except in the women's division. Somebody who specializes, because a lot of your most famous matches are these hardcore style matches. Why not bring somebody who's known for her death matches? And I think she's the best option for this. And I think you already kind of get what the vibe I'm going for with her. What do you think of Rina as an AEW pick?
Dude, I'm so into it. I hate that you put this in my head because I need it to happen now. I am satisfied with the fact that she's in Stardom now. I think that's really fucking cool. Makes me hope that Stardom does some hardcore stuff. But that would be so sick. That would be the deathmatch Amazonas in AEW is something that needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that she's, and again, you're like, well, the women's, it's a little different. Like, you could bring a top star into the women's division and they could probably get there. But still, I'm trying to look for roles, kind of, and maybe they could grow into something big. And I think Rina, if she came into AEW, she would get super over. Like, her act would really work for the fans. The same way it did in GCW. I mean, that would have been unthinkable a decade ago, that she would be this deathmatch warrior fighting for GCW in the War Games match at the end of the day. I think she'd be very unique and is a very, very talented and great wrestler. I think her look is awesome, like very unique again. Like, she looks like a totally tough badass that you want to have a beer with at the end of all this. I love Rina Yamashita, and I think she'd be a great pick. My final pick is Hyon. I think that she's somebody who is among the best talents on the indie scene for women, especially. I think that she's done a lot of great matches, especially recently. It really feels like she's ready to graduate, in my opinion. She was on the Dragon Gate USA show on WrestleMania weekend. She looked good in her match. And I mean, the person she was teaming with was not at her level at all. So the match wasn't that great, but she did good. She had a great match at WrestleMania weekend with Azumi and Prestige that I saw. It was really good. I loved her match against Danny Luna, the dog collar match in DPW a few months ago. I thought she looked phenomenal. That feud with Danny Luna is one of the most underrated feuds of the year so far because they've had multiple great brawls in DPW. And I think Hyon has a great look. I left Danny Luna alone because she's got the TNA exposure, but Hyon has not gotten her flowers yet, and she's among the best women in the indie scene, and I would put her in AEW. Another great person for Rena to have a violent death match with. But she can actually wrestle good too. The Renaissance Woman is now in AEW in my version. That's who I would target. So, yeah, those are my picks. Hyon, Rena, Kogar, and Adam Priest.
Yeah, great picks. You really have me there with Kogar and Yamashita. I am not familiar with Hyon at all. Can't tell you if I've ever seen a Hyon match, so that's an exciting one for me to check out. So you said to see her work in DPW Deadlock with
Danny Luna. Yeah,
awesome.
She had 2 different hardcore matches with her that you might want to check out for sure. One was a dog collar match too, so you'll probably be into that. She had a good match with Azumi, and she was on the DG USA show. But like I said, her tag match against Wing Warrior wasn't that great because I still think they had the good chemistry with Charisma, her partner. But she's a really talented girl. And I think she'll do some great things if she did get a shot at a major promotion. So I wanted to give those guys and girls shouts out as well. Although you jumped me, you beat me with Kogar because you put him in WWE. You jumped the line. We did that first. So, but yeah. So I think that's about it. We've covered everything for WWE and AEW. I think we've really looked at the strengths, the positives, the negatives. We had some fantasy booking ideas. I really went a little crazy with that Ring of Honor idea. I shocked the world with that, but it was a lot of fun, though. I'm really glad we got to do the show. I thought your picks were all really good. Like I said, I think that you have a great idea for both companies and what they need to work on and what they need to get better at. And I think that it was a good thing, man. So I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, this was a really fun format. Thank you for putting it together. Much appreciated, and it's always a blast to chat. So thank you.
Well, obviously we got some cool stuff coming very soon with Double or Nothing coming up as well. And then after that is like, Money in the Bank and, the Worlds Collide and all that too. So we've got a bunch of stuff coming up in the near future. But I definitely think this kind of thing is something we'll do more of after this little run we're on. It's something we can always turn to if there's not a big show or anything happening. We have other options available to us. I have some ideas I'll throw at you too, so there may be more different stuff coming for all of our wonderful listeners of Wrestle Update in the future. But, before we get out of here, just like always, I got to give you the floor. I've talked enough already. Talk to the people before I end the show. Whatever you want to say, it could be anything. Just let your heart out. Let us know what's inside of your heart.
Check out Deep Cuts, out now. Scythe Studios, tiny build. It's available on the MetaQuest and Steam, PC VR. Check out Eastern Lariat. Dylan is wonderful.
Hey, that's
like listening to him. Listen to all his other shows. Come on, check them all out. It's time. And yeah, hope you have a wonderful week. And I'm excited to. We come back next weekend with Battleground. Is that what it is? Or no, next weekend I will be at Double or Nothing live.
Yeah.
So I imagine Monday we will probably come in with a Monday or Sunday night. We'll see how I feel, but we'll come in with a fun report for that.
Cannot wait for that. I cannot wait for the live perspective. And, Arizona doing it big lately, getting Double or Nothing. It should be a great show. I'm looking forward to it. We talked a little bit about it on this show as well, the 2 main matches and stuff. So, going to be a lot of fun to chat that. And I hope you have a good time, man. Like, that's a really great show to go to. It's going to be a lot of fun, but I will say it's interesting that you, even working in video games, did not respect Clash of Clans. You forgot the game that they did that stupid tie-in with at WrestleMania.
Damn me. Damn me.
Oh well. Like, poor Clash of Clans. I think they'll be fine. But regardless, thank you guys so much for listening, tuning in to a wonderfully special episode. It was a lot of fun for me. Thankfully, Nello enjoyed it too. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed listening. Cannot wait to talk to you guys again about Double or Nothing. It's going to be a bona fide hoot. And you know I love you. And until next time, this has been your Wrestle Update.